This is the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show with Jake. The new way Wyoming wakes up. Yeah, howdy. Good day to you. It's Thursday, November 21. It's back. The property tax relief bill Governor Gordon vetoed last year as reeking of Joe Biden-style economics will be reintroduced by Wyoming legislators. The state claims cattle are trespassing on its land, but the local sheriff refuses to issue citations to the rancher. One of the oldest wind farms in Wyoming is now in partial non-operation. That means it hasn't functioned in at least 3 years. The Mountain West Conference answer to lawsuits and letters from legislators is to claim the urgency and emergency is being manufactured in order to get a transgender player out of the upcoming tournament. The case of the reckless duck hunter is too big for one judge to decide, says one judge. It should go to jury. Who's shooting Colorado wolves? There's gold in them dar hills in Wyoming. And the new majority whip, U.S. Senator John Barrasso, joins the show later this morning.
It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming for Thursday, November 21st. I'm Wendy Corr, bringing you headlines from the Cowboy State Daily Newsroom, brought to you by the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show with Jake. From 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday, Cowboy State Daily's Jake Nichols takes you deeper into the stories that matter and keeps up with the news, weather, and sports in your part of Wyoming. Just tune in to CowboyStateDaily.com and join the conversation. The Joint Revenue Committee advanced draft legislation at its meeting on Monday that, if passed into law, would cut property taxes by 25% for single-family residential home values of $2 million or less. Cowboy State Daily's Leah Wolfson reports that the bill is almost identical to the legislation Governor Mark Gordon already vetoed earlier this year.
The interesting thing about this is that Gordon obviously vetoed this bill, but the legislature does have the numbers at this point to overturn his veto. It could have actually done so earlier this year, but the governor took so long to veto the bill that this would have required the calling of a special session to overturn the governor's veto.
The committee passed the bill on an 11-3 vote on Monday. If passed into law, it would go into effect for the upcoming tax year and expire in June of 2027. For the past 14 years, 11 240-foot-high, 450,000-pound wind turbines have loomed over the landscape of northeastern Casper, once the symbol of the county's first step into green energy. Now some say they're just an eyesore. Casper resident Terry Wingirter was one of the Natrona County commissioners who approved the initial project in 2009. He told Cowboy State Daily's Dale Killingbeck that he wishes now he would have voted differently on the wind farm, which was to be operated by Chevron.
It didn't turn out the way he thought it was going to turn out. It only operated for a few years, then stopped, and he just feels like it hasn't been the asset to the county or to green energy or anything like that he thought it was going to be. The Natrona County Attorney's Office has received a letter from Chevron stating that they are going to try and make them operational by the end of the year. Whether that happens or not is yet to be determined.
State Representative Forrest Chadwick from House District 62, which includes the wind farm, said he's not heard complaints from constituents on the issue, but he believes the company needs to do something other than allow the wind turbines to sit idle in the wind. 12 women, including one associate coach and 2 former and 9 current collegiate volleyball players, last week sued the Mountain West Conference, San Jose State University, and others over the inclusion of a transgender member on SJSU's team. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports that on Tuesday, the conference said the women manufactured their own emergency to force the court into acting just days before the tournament, when they could have sued as early as late September.
The women women want the court to basically say that Blair Fleming cannot compete in the Mountain West volleyball tournament in this conference. And they're saying, hurry up and do this for us since the tournament starts November 27th. And so the Mountain West Conference comes back and says, whoa, you guys have known about the forfeiture policy since September 27th at least. So if this was such an emergency as it presented now, then they would have come to you with it in September or October, not in November right before the tournament.
One of the women's main arguments is that the Mountain West Conference stealth-edited or contrived its transgender participation policy on September 27th of this year, just as universities were starting to boycott games against San Jose. The Mountain West Conference says its policy is nothing new and was passed by athletic directors in August of 2022. With a years-long steady decline of Wyoming coal production setting up 2024 to come in less than 200 million tons for the first time in 32 years, the workforce mining that coal also continues to shrink. Through the third quarter of this year, employment at Wyoming coal mines is down almost 8% from the end of 2023, according to Cowboy State Daily's Greg Johnson.
Coal in percent this year so far compared to the end of last year, but looking back, it's down 25% from 2017. The natural correlation is as production wanes, fewer people are needed to produce less coal, so those jobs are leaving. Now, that doesn't mean that those people aren't using the skills. Those skills do transfer to other industries, the trona mines, to the oil fields, but those coal jobs, they're some of the highest paying jobs in Wyoming.
Down effect the coal mines have on other businesses that service them. Less production and fewer workers also means less business for local welders, electricians, well service companies, and others that contract with the mines and employ more of the local workforce. And now let's take a look at today's weather with Cowboy State Daily meteorologist Don Day.
Wyoming is fortunate to be between two large storms. One just off the west coast that'll batter the Pacific Northwest and California with rain, snow, and wind, and a big storm blowing up over the Great Lakes region. But in between the two storms is high pressure, and that's where we are. So for today and tomorrow, it'll be warmer, sunny to partly sunny. We're still going to have wind, but the wind won't be as strong as the last couple of days. And other than a few snow showers in the far western mountains of the state, there really won't be much going on over the next 48 hours. Now, over the weekend, some changes. We'll start to see some of that weather off the west coast come inland. So as we get into Saturday night and Sunday, there'll be some snow in the far west and the western valleys and mountains. And along the I-80 corridor, we may be seeing some developing snow late Saturday, Sunday into early Monday. Something we'll keep an eye on, and we'll have more on that for you tomorrow.
You can get Don's full forecast on the Cowboy State Daily website. I'll be back in just 15 seconds with more news.
Open enrollment is here. Discover a range of low-cost plans from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Wyoming. Shop now to find the best option for you. Online, in town, in touch. We're right around the corner. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Wyoming. What's your plan?
Well, Wyoming's prospective new gold mine has just cleared state regulatory hurdles and is moving ahead with a feasibility study, one step closer to actually pulling gold out of the ground. Cowboy State Daily's Renee Jean reports that there really is gold in them thar hills. That is the CK Gold project that U.S. Gold is developing about 20 miles west of Cheyenne.
This company, U.S. Gold, have just made it through all of their state regulatory hurdles. They've cleared all their permits, and now they're doing the final feasibility study that's going to determine if they can get financing for this project. If they get financing for this project, Wyoming will have its first and only gold mine. It's set to operate for 10 years.
The company won't start hiring in earnest until it has financing in place, although it does now have a link on its site for interested vendors and prospective employees. Wyoming's only member of the U.S. House of Representatives voiced support Wednesday for a new House rule banning males from the women's bathrooms and locker rooms throughout the U.S. Capitol complex. Representative Nancy Mace of South Carolina introduced a resolution to that effect Monday, weeks after Delaware Democrat Sarah McBride was elected as the first openly transgender member of Congress. Representative Harriet Hageman voiced support for the new rule in a Wednesday email to Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland.
The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, basically enacted it Wednesday, saying we're going to do men in men's bathrooms and changing rooms, women in women's bathroom and changing rooms. But the statement notes that there's lots of unisex bathrooms throughout the facility.
McBride issued a Wednesday statement to X, formerly Twitter, calling the bathroom movement a distraction from real issues. Well, a dispute over state-owned land has been causing an uproar in the Sundance area. The state has refused to put fencing around a 4,714-acre parcel of scenic canyon lands bought by the state of Wyoming in 2020. This has led to cattle from neighboring land users drifting onto the parcel and frustrating ranchers. Cowboy State Daily's Leah Wolfson reports that Crook County Sheriff Jeff Hodge has refused to write tickets for trespassing and has been petitioning the Office of State Lands and Investments to change its stance.
The issue has resulted in cattle crossing over from Schlorit's land into the new Lisi's land, creating a very high-tension-filled dispute over cattle trespassing on the new leaser's land. State legislators like Representative Chip Nyman have also petitioned the state to give the land for leasing back to the previous renter, Schlorit. The issue has become quite contentious.
The biggest problem with the land predicament is deciding who should pay for fencing to separate the state and private parcels, a cost that Hodge has estimated would run as much as $380,000. And as Colorado prepares to reintroduce more wolves, increased worry over them being shot has prompted a conservation group to set up a $50,000 reward fund for wolf poaching tips. The reward has been in the works for months, but the timing of its announcement Thursday was prompted by a bullet wound recently found in a Colorado wolf carcass. That's what members of the Rocky Mountain Wolf Project told Outdoors reporter Mark Hines.
Now, the bullet was not what killed the wolf. They never have been able to determine whether the wolf suffered that wound in Colorado or whether it had been shot previously when it came from Oregon. That did raise their worry or their concern when that bullet wound was found, that are people going to try to start to poach wolves in Colorado?
Some Colorado ranchers have expressed increasing frustration with wolves in that state. One family near the Wyoming state line said their ranch had become, quote, a grocery store for wolves. And that's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting the daily newsletter button on cowboystatedaily.com. And you can watch this newscast every day by clicking subscribe on our YouTube channel. And don't forget to drop in on the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show with Jake Nichols, Monday through Friday from 6 to 10 a.m. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Wendy Corr for Cowboy State Daily.
From Yellowstone to Devil's Tower, the Bighorn Mountains to the Teton Range, Cheyenne to Sheridan, Rawlins to Ralston, Cowboy State Daily Morning Show covers the state like no other radio show or podcast. We love Lovell. We're eager to share the stories of Story Will Crow About Crowheart and Yodel Over Yoder. Whether you make your home in Sweetwater, Chugwater, Powder River, or Green River, the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show will make you feel right at home. Jeffrey City, Atlantic City, we see you. Little America, Big Piney, you're on our radar. Howdy, Wapiti, Meeteetse, Shoshone, Ten Sleep, good morning, welcome, Torrington, Riverton, Wheatland, Lusk, Lingle, Lander, Timber, Casey, Kerwin, Moorcroft, Mountain View, Moose, Fort Bridger, Fort Laramie, Fort Washington, Hannah, Hudson, Hewlett, Dayton, Daniel, and DuBois. We are east of Weston, west of Midwest, north of Newcastle, and south of Sundance. Border to border, we love Wyoming and every one of its communities, bar none. Yeah. Get the day started with our sunrise of the day. This is aggressive music for that's better. Damn. I'm not there yet. I'm not quite there yet. Mike Malloy took this photograph. Sunrise over the Tetons taken in Elta, Wyoming, otherwise known as Elta, Idaho. I am never going to give that up. Beautiful shot, except for the Tetons are all pointing in the wrong direction. The Grand is leaning the wrong way. I love it over there in Elta. I'm just picking on you. Nice photograph, Mike. Beautiful. Good way to get the day going. Don Dave's weather forecast begins with this crazy, glorious skylighting. That's over Lake DeSmet. Rick Pallister submitted that photo to Don Day. Pretty sweet. Here's your updated day weather forecast for today. Pretty nice day across the state. Not too much weather trouble. Casper and Riverton, along with Shoshone, you're going to be mostly sunny today. A little windy in Casper, I'll say. You got a wind advisory heading north of Casper as you make your way toward Buffalo. 52 the high in Casper, sunny and 46 or so in Riverton and Shoshone. Southwest Wyoming, Evanston, Green River, Lyman, sunny skies with highs in the mid-40s. Western Wyoming, Pinedale, Alpine, Big Piney, sunny. Maybe a little bit of snow in the morning for you, Alpine, but otherwise sunny. Highs around mid to upper 30s. Du Bois, Jackson, chance of snow in the morning. Otherwise, partly sunny in the afternoon. Breezy conditions again with highs in the upper 40s. Bighorn Basin, Thermopolis, Cody, Worland, sunny skies. Highs in the low 50s. Buffalo, Sheridan, Bighorn, mostly sunny. After perhaps a little fog in the morning, we'll burn that off and get you to low 50s today under sunshine. Gillette, Sundance, Upton, mostly sunny with highs approaching 50. Down to the plains, Torrington, Douglas, sunny, highs in the upper 50s. Southeast, Wyoming, Cheyenne, Laramie, sunny, breezy with highs in the mid to upper 50s. Rawlins Encampment, sunny skies today, a little windy with highs in the upper 40s. Yeah, we'll take a look at the weather map. Here's what it looks like. Oh, I got my Zoom room got all funky. I got to open the Zoom room for what the heck? I don't know what's happened to my my regular camera. Okay, but there's, we'll see if we can fix that in a minute. I tell you, the video aspects of doing a radio show drive me batty every day. I'm a radio guy, and I'm not video, obviously, by one look at my hair every morning. I'm not a video dude. I don't like the idea that there's a video component to this product. Say that out loud again for the people I work for who insist there's video to this product. 21 degrees or 19 degrees in Jackson, 16 in Worland, 25 in Glen Rock. Torrington, you're about 15 right now. Moorcroft, 11, 34 degrees in Rawlins, 31 in Cheyenne. Road conditions, really nothing to speak of other than, as we said, if you're heading on I-25 north of Casper, you're looking at heavy winds. And then over the mountains in the western Wyoming, you've got some slippery roads heading north and northwest, north and northeast out of Jackson, between Jackson and Du Bois. Yeah, some slippery roads. Same thing for heading to the east gate of Yellowstone out of Cody, although I don't know why you'd be going to the east gate, as they've locked up Jellystone for the time being until we get over the snow travel going on in the nation's first national park. Yeah, I don't know what's happening with my cameras. Are just going all batty, Greg. Let me try to fix those while you talk about your story about coal. We shouldn't be surprised. Coal jobs down in the third sector, third quarter. Not doing great in coal.
Yeah, the coal jobs are down about like 7.7% since the end of last year. Not a surprise because coal production is down a lot too. So, when production is down, they don't keep as many workers around. But looking back at the numbers from 2017 to now, there are 25% fewer coal jobs than there was before. So Yeah, that's quite a bit, but I mean, it kind of reflects the decline in the coal too, because we're probably more than 25% down in production from that time. So, yeah, it's just another part of the story of what's going on with the coal industry.
Hmm. Getting it turned around. U.S. Senator John Barrasso will join us later in the show, and we'll ask him if, I know energy's priority. The Trump administration has said so. Trump, too. I think we can expect a turnaround in energy anyway. You watch. So we'll see if coal.
Because it's not only the administration and policies that are driving this, it's the market.
Yeah.
It is, the administration isn't setting the price for natural gas, and that's what it is they're burning natural gas because it's cheaper to burn than coal right now. But where the administration can really come in is there something that the feds can do to open up basically there's a blockade on these western states, California, Oregon, and Washington have said, no, you can't ship coal from here. We don't like coal, so you can't ship it from here. And that has closed off those Asian markets from coal. And really, that's the only place for Wyoming to send its coal. With as inexpensive as it is, our coal is only about $11, $12 a ton. That's what they sell it for. Whereas the metallurgical coal from back east, that's selling for like $38, $39 a ton. So it's a totally different type of coal, a different market. And for that price, we have to be able to ship it, kind of direct to the port. Right now, if they want to get it to any kind of port, they'd have to kind of ship it like down to Texas and then ship it all the way down around and up. It's just too expensive. You can't do it. Or all the way up into Canada. And you can't pay that much to ship it. So.
Oh, the answer is right there in front of us and right around the corner, Greg. We just wait for climate change to rise the oceans. Bye-bye, California and Washington. And we only have to whip Oregon into compliance because the ocean will be right there.
Or it just comes all the way up and, Wyoming now has beachfront property and we can have our own port.
That's right. Alta, Wyoming, You're going to be the new beach. Mike Malloy with a great photograph, the sunset over Alta. It'll be beach property here. Don't sell, Mike. You're sitting on a gold mine. Yeah.
Wait for the San Andreas Fault to drop California into the ocean, and then the tidal wave to come up and take out the rest.
We can dream here in Wyoming. I love this story from Leo Wolfson because, the first question I had was anyone who's been in Wyoming a minute knows, I think, that Wyoming is a fence-out state, which means it's not the rancher's responsibility to make sure his cattle are fenced in his property. It's up to you if you don't want cattle roaming around in your backyard to fence them out. But the state says that doesn't pertain to us. Wait a minute. Interesting story from Leo.
Yeah. And not only that, but the state wants the local sheriff to ticket those ranchers trespassing when their cows get onto that leased land.
The Crook County Sheriff.
The sheriff says, no, I'm not doing it. All right, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. Crook County Sheriff said, no way. He said that's not a solution to the problem and it's not right. And nope, he's not going to write any tickets anytime soon. Interesting story.
Well, and I guess technically the cows are the trespassers, right? I mean, you need to cite the cows.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and see, here's where that electronic ID tags come in, because the rancher can claim, I've never seen that cow before. I don't know whose cow that is. And then we can go verify very quickly, oh, that's your cow. Oh, darn it. Yeah, that's a weird situation. It's so Western though, pure Wyoming story. You're not gonna get that.
And I mean, I do kind of. Well, I do and I don't. I mean, the person who leased the land, now the state's saying, hey, you want a fence? You build it. And it's like 350, 400 grand to build that fence. And and some part of me it has a little sympathy for that person, but then at the same time, I mean, if you're a rancher and you're leasing the land and there's not a fence there, there's not a fence there. And and I don't blame you for not wanting other cattle on the land that you're paying for, and they're grazing up the grass, that you're paying for. But if between the state and whoever's leasing that land, they got to figure it out to get a fence, not the other guys. Maybe
Yeah.
Jake invent the cattle leash, that people can just
The cattle
put on all their cows, and then we'll keep them in a pasture or something.
Invent and market the cattle. I don't, this is Hatfield and McCoy dispute. I don't know if cattle leash is even going to solve this. This goes deeper than cows. This is state versus this rancher. There's something else going on there. And Leo alludes to it.
It just brings up that fence in, fence out debate that's been going on for a while.
And you know what it is going in. It's like the people who buy a house near an airport. The airport didn't pop up overnight there. When the planes make noise and you complain, hey, you knew it going in. You knew there was no fence there going in. I don't know how that's going to resolve. How do you like that wind power now? One of the state's first wind power turbine plants hasn't. I love this terminology used by the wind turbine company. Casper Wind Farm said they agree that for the last 3 years they've been in partial non-operation. In other words, nothing's working out there. Yeah. They haven't been spinning. What's happening?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I got a car that's just been sitting there that's in partial operation.
I was going to say the same thing. You know how many rednecks in Wyoming have a vehicle that's in partial non-operation up on blocks in the back behind the double wide? Yeah, it's in partial non-operation. Yeah, he crapped out. 11 wind turbines haven't spun in 3 years, maybe more. And, one Casper resident who was on the Trona County Commissioners Board when they approved this is way back when everybody's saying we got to go green. These wind turbines are going to be great. They're going to be the future. And these county commissioners heard from a lot of folks in the town that were kind of wary about it. They're like, I don't know. Some people didn't know. And they said, let's try it. And wow, now these many years later, this initial project approved in 2009. But these 11 wind turbines have not operated in 3 years. Casper Wind Farm has their excuse as to why, and hopefully they can get them cranking by the end of the year. But we'll see. 14-year-old wind farm.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of shows you, though. I mean, what happens if one of these other big wind farms that have hundreds of turbines and stuff on them falls into the same type of thing? How do you handle it? Do you just let them sit there?
Well, I'll tell you, as a point of approval, way back in the approval process, similar to a fracking outfit, you better make sure these companies, when they do leave, they may not be there forever. You better acknowledge that if they do cease operations, they got to clean the stuff up. You got to clean your evaporating pools up. If you're a oil and gas extractor, and you get rid of those big giant wind turbines on your way out while you're partially non-operational. Pack up your stuff and yeah.
Yep, absolutely. One of these days, I mean, maybe one of these blades falls off and hits somebody's cow that wasn't fenced out.
We're just creating all kinds of disaster scenarios. We're going to sink the state of California into the Pacific. We got cows that we want, wind turbine blades to fall in them. We're creating disaster today.
If the turbine blade hits a cow, does it make a sound? You don't know. It's very, very possible scenarios here this morning.
You had the wishful thinking of an editor that doesn't want a slow news day. You're like, I hope some stuff like this happens. I don't like what I'm seeing with this whole transgender issue, the Mountain West Conference, volleyball. We've been at this for weeks. Claire McFarland following this story. Every time I think this story is going to finally simmer down and get out of the headlines, it's back. And I don't like the rhetoric I'm hearing now from the conference. We know there was a letter drafted by Wyoming legislators to the conference saying, get your act together. Senator Barrasso, the feds have weighed in and said, Mountain West Conference, get your act together with the transgender. It's not, none of this is fair. Lawsuits, obviously, and the response from the Mountain West Conference on letters and lawsuits, instead of addressing the issue, their response is, you're only doing this because of that. You're only trying to ruin our tournament. That to me, that's deflecting the focus. Talk about the timing and the intent is to derail the upcoming tournament. I don't know. That's not answering.
Yeah, it doesn't address the claims.
Yeah.
Because if it's true, the issue aside, it doesn't matter what the issue is. If it's true that they actually were going back and like retroactively trying to change a policy to, penalize these people for doing something they didn't like, you can't let them get away with that. Because it just opens the door to do that every time. It's so I think that's an issue, whether it's over the trans or not. They could have done it over any kind of issue, but that's a pretty serious charge, and for their response not to be, that blatantly didn't happen. Instead to be, it's just their way to try to derail our tournament. It kind of deflects and makes you wonder.
The response does not is no answer to the allegation. It's like a 8-year-old playground argument. When you said my dad's tougher than it's silly. It's rather than answer the charges against you, you say, well, you're only doing this because ... That's not how you argue stuff, and I expected better from Gloria Navarez and the Mountain West Conference. We got to fix it, and there's no way to do it. What else is going on? Who's shooting Colorado wolves? Mark Hines had that story about wolves. They're continuing to reintroduce wolves to Colorado, and a little bit of pushback, maybe. I don't know. But a bullet hole was found in one wolf that had died by other causes, it's believed. But
it's even been suggested that maybe if the wolf had passed into Wyoming, that someone from Wyoming shot at it.
Yeah.
And, I saw a comment on it. Someone was saying that, well, that's not true, because if someone from Wyoming had shot at that wolf, he'd be dead.
Yeah. Would have been a lethal wound. Yeah. Well, what's going on lately is Rob Edward, Rocky Mountain Wolf Protection Project founder and president, said it felt like since this is in the news, felt like a good time to announce that his group is going to put up $50,000 in reward to any information leading to who may have put a bullet in this Colorado wolf.
Or future ones, because they're getting ready to release like another 15 or so. Pretty soon here, and there's already a good anti-wolf sentiment in Colorado, and so they put out more. I think they expect that frustration to boil over in some of these ranchers and stuff, because it's really, it's frustrating for these ranchers in Wyoming. If the wolves are harassing your livestock and taking your sheep or whatever, you could do something about it. You can go get them. But in Colorado, you can't. And the ranchers are getting more frustrated. It's like they're not just basically, one rancher told Mark, that basically their ranch has become a grocery store for wolves. And
Yeah.
so it's a big problem. With it, it shows one of the problems with the reintroduction. Not that it's wrong or anything, but it's just not all happy. Hey, let's bring the wolves back.
Well, a little bit of sad news to share from Cowboy State Daily. Renee Jean has left her post to go become a gold prospector. She's headed for Kurt Gowdy State Park with her mule and her gold pans and whatever else the prospectors need. Her pickaxe. You got to have a pickaxe. She's found gold in them Dar hills, and she talks about a company that's been waiting for final state regulations to be approved, and it looks like they're ready to go, looking for gold. This company, U.S. Gold.
And the thing is because this is on state land, so that they don't need federal approval or to go through the federal process. So it's gone a lot faster because the federals, to mine on it could take 10, 15 years. Here, it's only been a few years, and they believe there could be as much as 1 million ounces of gold in this place. Whether they can get to it or not, well, I guess we'll see. But yeah.
Yeah, it's going to mean immediate jobs. U.S. Gold CEO George B. told Renee that they just been waiting on things like a discharge permit, the air quality permit. Everything seems to be in order with state regulations, and they're ready to go. But what he did share was some of this area has already been mined. There was some old mines there, and it turned out they hit some low grade gold that really wasn't worth it, and that's why it's a ghost town, this area. But low grade works today on a large scale. George B. said, hey, we can mine low grade gold, and we'll probably hit some copper as well, which is worth stuff. So he sees a usefulness in a mine that, once didn't produce quite like, not enough to make it, a rich strike. But for today's technology and work at large scale operations, they think they can bring places like the CK mine back to life.
Yeah, there's a lot more applications too that you can use low grade gold. It's not just for making jewelry, but there's gold is put in all kinds of electronics and computer components and things like that. So, there's a big market for it if they can get it.
Good point. Claire McFarland following up the story of, we learned 2 new things about that duck hunting accident where the guy's his shotgun jammed or misfired and then accidentally did fire when he was pointing it at one of his best friends. That's going to go to jury. I like what the judge is saying here. This is hard to decide. I like, judges decide stuff of law, is this lawful? Is that not lawful? Here's a point. Here's some precedent. This seems like a jury of your peers should decide what was your intent. What was your level of recklessness and carelessness when you accidentally discharge a firearm? I think 12 people should decide that rather than one judge. And that's kind of what the judge says. This is not for a judge. This should go to jury. And we also learned we had the wrong last name all this time. Maurizio Dayton, 19-year-old, is the victim. I think his last name has been wrong up until this point, but good follow-up from Claire.
Yeah, I think it was wrong in the report.
Mm-hmm.
What I found interesting, because I'm by no means a law expert or anything, but I thought the defendant, it was the defendant's choice whether you could have a trial by judge or a trial by jury. And so I didn't know that the judge could then say, no, I think this needs to be a jury. I'm not gonna, do this. So,
yeah. I don't know. That's a question for Claire.
But I don't know if this defendant had chosen that or not.
Yeah.
But, I thought, but maybe that's just something that you get from TV all the time.
Yeah. Claire would know. I like the notion that a jury would decide because, a judge may not have that kind of, maybe this judge has never been duck hunting. Maybe he's never held a firearm at all. There might be things about this case that he's going to be all judgy with his powdered wig, and he'll know like the law with his law books behind him, but he may not be able to put himself in the shoes of this defendant and think about it that way. Whereas 12 people, peers, could maybe, between the consensus, could get there.
And this is just thinking out loud, speculation, because you don't want to, put intentions in the judge. But, the judge may be doing him a favor in this point because, the judge is trained and has to follow the law no matter what. And, that's pretty much what a jury has to do. But, with 12 people or 6, depending on how many are on this jury, all you need is one to say, "Nah, I don't think so." To not be convicted there. So,
I think it's if I'm the defendant, I feel better about that kind of a decision. Leo Wilson.
It's just a sad thing. They're buddies, they're friends, they're young out there, and it's just it's just a sad situation.
Yeah, it's just an accident. Nothing's going to fix it. So yeah, there's no win there at all. And I don't know how you find justice there at all, but we'll see. Claire's going to follow it, and we will, when we get next time I'm with Claire, I'll ask her about that jury thing. Leo Wolfson's story about legislators say they're going to run it back. Gordon vetoed that bill last year that would reduce property taxes by perhaps 25% for single-family homes. Gordon didn't like it at the time, saying it was just kind of smacked of Joe Biden type of, rob Peter to pay Paul stuff. And legislators say it looks like they're going to bring it right back in this session.
Yeah, it's an interesting it's Wyoming politics being in play here because they're bringing it back. It's the same bill. They didn't tweak it or adjust it to try to appease Gordon's concerns with it. They're bringing back the same thing, and basically what the message is go ahead and veto it, Gordon.
Right.
They didn't have time in the last session with the budget. They didn't finish in time for them to then have some time left to get together and overturn any of these vetoes. They will this time because it's a longer session. It's not the budget. So basically they're saying, hey, we're bringing this back. Go ahead and veto it because we'll overturn your veto. That's basically the message.
Yeah, and also maybe a secondary message of how's this going to look to Wyoming residents that are hurting with property tax if you shoot this down again? That's not going to be a good look, Governor. We dare you. It's sort of a who blinks first, but
yeah. And it is politics too, because then this time, if Gordon doesn't veto it, then they can criticize him. Well, you vetoed it last time. Why didn't you? Why didn't you veto it this time? So it's almost a can't win situation for Gordon on that one.
They got the governor in a corner. Yeah, could be. Anything else going on before we dig into our first story of the day?
Nothing else. There's nothing else at all going on.
That's it.
That's it. We're all out of news. We're done. No more news in Wyoming. That's it. That was the last story that was available.
The buck stops here. The news stops here. There's Fight Club in Jackson Hole. I'll talk about that in a little bit.
Oh, really? Oh, see, that people are going to say that's what their bandage is for, Jake. But you can't talk about it, right?
I didn't even know about it. Everyone knew but me, but apparently this has been on social media. These like group organized big gang fights in Jackson. Like, man, I could think of other communities that would have fight clubs, but Jackson has apparently a fight club. Police are looking for more information about who might be in these videos. They've been on videos. I don't know if Netflix has any plans to air these, but fight club going on in Jackson and over the hill in Teton. I think it's actually Teton County, Idaho versus Teton County, Wyoming in fight club is what I'm gathering, but I'll...
But don't the people in Jackson hire the people in Teton County, Idaho to do
That's
their work?
right.
Or are they hiring Teton County, Idaho people to fight other Teton County?
Of course. Of course. When you're in Jackson Hole, you don't actually do the fighting. You got somebody for that. You write the check. You've got the platinum card. That's how you do Fight Club.
You're flying them in from the gym in Venice Beach or something.
That's right. Well, there is no more Venice Beach. We've gotten rid of California. Remember earlier today, we sunk it into the ocean. We killed a few cows with a wind turbine blade. We've wreaked havoc in... throughout the land. Sorry. But
I heard Jake Paul's next fight is Al Simpson, actually.
Oh, that would be a miss. I hear all kinds of things like who he's challenging, how old he wants to go.
Exactly. That's the only challenge, old.
Yeah.
Al Simpson, I think he wants to get Jimmy Carter before Jimmy Carter finally goes off.
Well, if he's looking for Al Simpson, he better gear up. Al's got some fighting in him left, I'm sure.
That's true.
I don't know about that one. Yeah.
That is true.
I'd be worried for Jake. All right, buddy. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Have a great day. That's Greg Johnson, managing editor of the Cowboy State Daily. And suddenly, my camera has fixed itself. Okay, that works for me. Let me grab a quick break and reset things for today in hour one of the Cowboy State Daily Show. Morning of the Cowboys State Daily Show with Jake, and let's take a look at our first story of the day. First, we got Rick Morrison. If you ticket a cow and that's good. Rick Morrison chimes in on our Facebook comment section and kind of with a glorious recap of the morning discussion so far. If you ticket a cow and they demand a jury trial, how are you going to get 12 cows in those small jury boxes, and who covers the cleanup costs? Exactly. We've been talking about cows trespassing, cows potentially getting hit by wind turbine blades that are not spinning in Natrona County outside of Casper. And we've been talking about coal and the exportation of coal that could be made easier if there just wasn't any California. David Howell said, good morning. Hi, David. Good morning. Our first story of the day, in no particular order, is the Wyoming legislature is not taking no for an answer. They plan to run it back with a bill that Governor Mark Gordon vetoed at last session. The bill would propose to cut property taxes by a quarter for single-family residential homes valued at $2 million or less. So what could possibly be wrong with this, right? Governor Gordon's problem with the bill, the reason he vetoed it, in a letter, Governor Gordon called the bill socialistic and a Bidenomic, Bidenomic type of tax relief. The committee passed the bill 11-3. The vote was 11-3 on Monday. If passed into law, if Gordon does not veto it this time around, it would go into effect for the upcoming tax year and expire in June 27. The bill appropriates, and the way, obviously, property tax revenue goes to the state. So if the state is missing out on property tax revenue, then where are you going to make up that difference? The bill appropriates up to $225 million a year from the general fund and legislative stabilization reserve account to the Department of Revenue. Oh my God, I don't even know what I'm reading anymore. I think they're taking money from basically other revenue sources of the state, which would likely be energy extraction, mineral revenues. Taking money out of the mineral revenues to cover what would be the shortage and what's not coming in with your property tax, since you've got a little bit of relief. It's like a little bit of like robbing Peter to pay Paul. And some of these bill sponsors admit, yeah, it's a little like that. But the challenge looks like it'll be issued to the governor again. Here's practically the same exact bill. We double dog dare you to veto it this time, because people are hurting. Property tax going up and up. I don't know. Some people just can't do it. I mean, the home they bought and are in for 20, 30, 40 years, they just can't afford to stay in it anymore. And it will be interesting to see what the governor might do this time around. Good story from Leo Wolfson. I think, do we have Leo later today? Let's see, today's a Thursday. No, we're going to talk to Leo tomorrow. So we'll ask him a little bit more about that story. Other stories in the news this morning. Boy, that Mountain West transgender issue just will not go away. It's got some national. In fact, I don't even want to go there yet, because we only have 5 minutes till the top of the hour. We're going to need more than that because it's a big, deep issue, national stuff coming into play now. There's the first openly transgender person joining the House, not the State House, the big House, not that big House. The House, Congress, Washington, D.C., and that's got Harriet Hageman and others in a fluster. And we'll talk about that a little bit later and how it sort of parallels this Mountain West Conference volleyball transgender issue. How about this story from Renee Jean? She's not really leaving the Cowboy State Daily, although, man, if you strike it rich in a gold mine, it's like winning the lottery. Do you keep your day job? Renee is not mining, but she found a company that is. U.S. Gold believes there's a site in Kurt Gowdy State Park that could be a potential gold mine, and I mean literal gold mine, could hold 1 million ounces of gold, U.S. Gold says. And the green light is on for George B's U.S. Gold. He's the CEO of this company. And they've identified this area as being potential gold rich, some low grade gold. This area was previously mined. It's been an old mine back in the day. You know, the reason they closed the mine, not the exact reason, but it was producing less and less high grade gold. And back then, you always balance how much is a flake of gold, how much is an ounce of gold worth, how much does it cost to go get it. And they started hitting more and more low-grade gold, and things weren't working out too well with the gold mining way back then. The final dagger in the gold mining operations way back in the day was the workers were not getting paid in a timely manner. That's usually an indication your gold mining is coming to an end. The workers weren't getting paid. They got so mad, they intentionally blew up this big boiler, and that was the end of the CK mine. But U.S. Gold says they're going to reopen all them old mines, maybe employ some 230, 255 people, and get to work mining again. And it's okay that this mine produces low-grade gold because they say they can use it. That, along with copper, is useful. So, it could be some gold mine going on state property at the Kurt Gowdy State Park. It looks like everything's a go. It was all kind of waiting on state regulations. Air quality permit, the discharge permit. Where is your discharge going to go? It's all in order. All the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and the old mines are going to get back cranking again. U.S. Gold has struck gold in Wyoming. Interesting story. Renee Jean has it for you. Find it on the Cowboy State Daily today. Sorry, you going to be all right, Kat? Well, we're at the top of the hour. Wendy Core's news, and the cat is being thrown out the studio. We'll see.
It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming for Thursday, November 21st. From the Cowboy State Daily Newsroom, I'm Wendy Core. The Joint Revenue Committee advanced draft legislation at its meeting on Monday that, if passed into law, would cut property taxes by 25% for single-family residential home values of $2 million or less. Cowboy State Daily's Leah Wolfson reports that the bill is almost identical to the legislation Governor Mark Gordon already vetoed earlier this year.
The interesting thing about this is that Gordon obviously vetoed this bill, but the legislature does have the numbers at this point to overturn his veto. It could have actually done so earlier this year, but the governor took so long to veto the bill that this would have required the calling of a special session to overturn the governor's veto.
The committee passed the bill on an 11-3 vote on Monday. If passed into law, it would go into effect for the upcoming tax year and expire in June 2027. For the past 14 years, 11 240 feet high, 450,000-pound wind turbines have loomed over the landscape of northeastern Casper, once the symbol of the county's first step into green energy. Now some say they're just an eyesore. Casper resident Terry Winggerter was one of the Natrona County commissioners who approved the initial project in 2009. He told Cowboy State Daily's Dale Killingbeck that he wishes now he would have voted differently on the wind farm.
It only operated for a few years, then stopped. And he just feels like it hasn't been the asset to the county or to green energy or anything like that he thought it was going to be.
State Representative Forrest Chadwick said he's not heard complaints from constituents on the issue, but he believes something other than allow the wind turbines to sit idle in the wind. 12 women, including one associate coach and 2 former and 9 current collegiate volleyball players, last week sued the Mountain West Conference, San Jose State University, and others over the inclusion of a transgender member on SJSU's team. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports that on Tuesday, the conference said the women manufactured their own emergency to force the court into acting just days before the tournament, when they could have sued as early as late September.
The Mountain West Conference comes back and says, whoa, you guys have known about the forfeiture policy since September 27th at least. So if this was such an emergency as it presented now, then they would have come to you with it in September or October, not in November right before the tournament.
One of the women's main arguments is that the Mountain West Conference contrived its transgender participation policy on September 27th of this year. The conference disputes that claim. I'll be back with more news right after this.
Did you know it's illegal to dig or excavate without knowing what's below? This is Jan Warren, Executive Director for One Call of Wyoming. We will be hosting workshops around the state to educate homeowners, realtors, landscapers, underground facility owners, and excavators on the state law, industry best practices when it comes to planting a tree, building a fence, or any other excavation project you have planned. Join us for a free breakfast, get your questions answered, and learn how One Call of Wyoming is here to help. Go to onecallofwyoming.com and register today.
With a years-long steady decline of Wyoming coal production setting up 2024 to come in less than 200 million tons for the first time in 32 years, the workforce mining that coal also continues to shrink. Through the third quarter of this year, employment at Wyoming coal mines is down almost 8% from the end of 2023, according to Cowboy State Daily's Greg Johnson.
The natural correlation is as production wanes, fewer people are needed to produce less coal, so those jobs are leaving.
But there's a trickle-down effect the coal mines have on other businesses that service them. Less production and fewer workers also means less business for local welders, electricians, well service companies, and others that contract with the mines and employ more of the local workforce. And Wyoming's prospective new gold mine has just cleared state regulatory hurdles and is moving ahead with a feasibility study, one stop closer to actually pulling gold out of the ground. Cowboy State Daily's Renee Jean reports that there really is gold in them thar hills. That is the CK Gold project that U.S. Gold is developing about 20 miles west of Cheyenne.
They've cleared all their permits, and now they're doing the final feasibility study that's going to determine if they can get financing for this project. If they get financing for this project, Wyoming will have its first and only gold mine.
The company won't start hiring in earnest until it has financing in place, although it does now have a link on its site for interested vendors and prospective employees. And that's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting the daily newsletter button on cowboystatedaily.com. I'm Wendy Core for Cowboy State Daily.
Cowboy State Daily Show with Jake. Let me, I gotta just check my Zoom room again, make sure. Yeah, that looks better. All right. I mean, I don't look better, but the Zoom room looks better. The room is in order because we have, we got a high-ranking politician in later today coming up at 5 minutes. We'll talk to U.S. Senator from Wyoming, John Barrasso, who was just recently voted by his peers as Majority Whip. That'd be awesome to get a chance. We're honored to get a chance to talk to Senator Barrasso here a little bit later. But first, the most important guy of the hour is Don Day. He'll check in about 15 minutes here, and we'll talk weather and all kinds of stuff. Maybe some balloons. I don't know. Clara McFarland has a follow-up to that duck hunting accident. Greg and I were talking about this last hour. There's just no good resolution to this whole deal. I don't know how you find justice. I don't know where justice is in this. This is a case of two buddies who went out duck hunting, winter duck hunting, January 20th of last year. The two were good friends. The family was good friends with this kid who was killed, Maurizio Dayton, 19-year-old. The 20-year-old is Gage Zook. He's the one facing manslaughter charges for the accidental discharge of his shotgun while they were duck hunting. If you need the background and weren't there from the beginning, these two men went duck hunting as they have before. Maurizio, the victim, is from like a urban inner city environment in Minnesota. The two go to college together at UW. Gage Zook, whose father is well-versed in firearms. He's a firearms instructor. So Gage invited Maurizio to go duck hunting, just show him some of, cool outdoor Wyoming. And Maurizio loved it, and the two were duck hunting on, I believe, more than one occasion. But on this occasion, on January 20th of early this year, there was an incident where Gage Zook saw, they're in the duck blind. Out comes some ducks. He points his shotgun at him, and he pulls the trigger, and nothing happens. No fire, misfire, hang fire. So he sets the shotgun down, grabs, they had a third guy with him, grabs his shotgun and tries to shoot the ducks. And then later, after the ducks pass, he goes back to figure out what the heck was wrong with my gun. And as he's checking it out, it's unfortunately pointing right at Maurizio Dayton. The gun goes off. Dayton's killed. And now we're looking at manslaughter charges. The big question is whether this Wyoming college student, Gage Zook, acted recklessly when he shot and killed his friend during the duck hunt, or whether he was simply careless. Careless is a little less in the legal state of things. Reckless would now get you to manslaughter. Careless is just an accident. It was certainly careless, and it was certainly an accident. I don't think anybody is trying to claim there's any intent here, just an accident. But could it have been prevented if Gage Zook was acting recklessly? That's what a jury will decide. The latest news on this case from Clara McFarland says the judge who was looking at a motion to dismiss. Now, we haven't got to trial yet, simply a motion to dismiss. The judge said, I can't decide that. I need a jury to decide even that. And I believe this would be a pre-trial motion, not the actual trial. This is just to look at whether there is enough there to move forward with involuntary manslaughter. And the judge basically said, Judge Buchanan, by the way, Claire says that the judge says Wyoming honors the sanctity of the jury's role as fact finder, Judge Buchanan wrote. And this court would be improperly invading the province of the jury were it to conduct a mini trial prior to the actual trial to answer those questions. This it cannot do. This decision is bigger than one judge. a jury should decide. Slowly moves forward. Again, this duck hunting accident happened January 20th, and we're now almost toward the end of the year here. The charges didn't come until April, involuntary manslaughter charges. But, again, what do you do here? What are you being asked to do? I know you're trying to make the findings for involuntary manslaughter. There's certain things that come with that, like did Gage Zook act recklessly? You're going to be asked to decide that. But really, when you throw out all the legalese and the lawyer stuff, you're asking yourself in your heart of hearts, did Gage Zook intentionally shoot his friend? Probably not. Did Gage Zook make a horrible mistake? Did he act carelessly, recklessly? And what of all this is going to bring justice? What do you do with Gage Zook? Is he a menace to society? Should he be punished for what he did? Should he removed from society because we don't want to see him walking around with a shotgun anymore? And what of all these resolutions brings Maurizio Dayton back? None. Tough situation, no win. These are the worst kind of trials to me for a jury. It's just torturing. What can you do? What can you decide that's right? Every decision is wrong. Every decision is inadequate. It's tough. That's a tough one. Claire McFarland's been following that story for our Cowboy State Daily readers. She has it today. How about this? The sheriff who refuses to write citations to a cattle rancher after his cows go creeping. Yeah, I love this story because it's so Wyoming. I know the Office of State Lands and Investments doesn't love this story. They're the ones bringing it to the forefront. They've asked the Crook County Sheriff. The state owns this land, by the way. We're talking about a 40 acres of state-owned land grazed for leasing. The nearby neighboring ranchers' cows, eat on his property and then wander out and eat grass wherever they want to. And this, for those uninformed, Wyoming is a fence-out state, meaning the rancher is not required to contain his cattle with fences on his own property. You, as the neighbor, are required to build a fence and keep stuff out if you don't want it in. If the neighbor's got a dog, a cattle, an ostrich, whatever, and you don't want it on your property, you've got to fence it out. The state's argument is it doesn't apply to them because in the state statutes, I believe, is it statutes or Constitution? I wish I knew more about law stuff and politics. Leo does, though. I believe it would be state statutes that says, Wyoming's a fence-out state. In the exact wording, the OSLI, the State Land Investment Board, says it doesn't spell out specifically that the state has to fence out. It says people or private entities have to fence out. It doesn't specifically call out the state as having to also fence out. And that to me seems like a bit of a technicality. I don't know if there's a lot to stand on there, but I'm not a judge. But yeah, that's one of the arguments in this story by the state, who says they're tired of these cows tromping all over their state land. As they say, it's going to be expensive to fence out that land, estimated $380,000, I think, to fence out the 4,714 acres. And the state says they don't need to fence it out because that's not exactly how statute reads. You know, I think we have the general idea in Wyoming that if you don't want stuff on your property, you've got to fence your property. We all know that. The state certainly knows that. It sounds like, yeah. Good story, though. Leo Wolfson has that story, fencing drama. So what the state has appealed to the Crook County Sheriff to write this rant for his trespassing cows, and the Carbon County Sheriff Jeff Hodge said he will not. He doesn't believe that's a solution to the problem. He doesn't think it's right. And he's not going to help out the state in writing tickets to this rancher whose cows don't know where they belong. Leo Wolfson with the story, Cowboy State Daily. Check it out today. Let's get to a quick Don Day weather forecast before we get Don actually in here. Here's what it looks like today across.
It's a Wyoming is fortunate to be between two large storms, one just off the west coast that'll batter the Pacific Northwest and California with rain, snow, and wind, and a big storm blowing up over the Great Lakes region. But in between the two storms is high pressure, and that's where we are. So for today and tomorrow, it'll be warmer, sunny to partly sunny. We're still going to have wind, but the wind won't be as strong as the last couple of days. And other than a few snow showers in the far western mountains of the state, there really won't be much going on over the next 48 hours. Now, over the weekend, some changes. We'll start to see some of that weather off the west coast come inland. So as we get into Saturday night, and Sunday, there'll be some snow in the far west and the western valleys and mountains. And along the I-80 corridor, we may be seeing some developing snow late Saturday, Sunday into early Monday. Something we'll keep an eye on, and we'll have more on that for you tomorrow.
I didn't mean to cheer today's weather forecast. It was
Cowboy State is one visit, cowboystatedaily.com.
I am in full agreement with Don Day's forecast. It is cheer-worthy, yes. Everybody put up a cheer for that weather forecast. I like it. Why am I small again? I just don't know what's going on with my... That should not be my... Yeah. I don't know why I made myself little again, but I would rather be small. Don Day into the Zoom room. We'll talk all things weather. And let's just make sure we got our Zoom room whipped into shape. Yeah, that's good. That's not bad. Don Day, you're sort of the opening act for U.S. Senator John Barrasso, who's going to join us here in about 20 minutes. So, yeah, you're opening for a big headliner right now.
Oh, my goodness. Pressure is on.
Yes, sir. Hey, why does California keep sending us stuff we don't want? I mean, they invented this bomb cyclone, and now they're going to push it our way next week. We don't want it.
I'm sorry. You know, when you're upstream, it's like, don't drink downstream from the herd.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're downstream, there's not much when it's upstream, not much you can do.
We'd never be able to reverse the jet stream and send them all our cow farts and burps, would we?
Well, if we woke up one day and that happened, there's something much larger going on.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I'm seriously you've seen every disaster movie starts that way. My favorite, when New York City freezes over, whatever that movie is, there's
you're quoting the day after tomorrow.
I love that movie.
I laughed all the way through that movie because of all the things that were, completely wrong or fantastic. That couldn't happen, but it did make for a good movie, a fun movie.
Right. You probably watched that the same way I watch Yellowstone and say, that's not how you ride a horse. That's not how you rope I do the same thing, but yeah, all those movies start with a guy like you, some super smart meteorologist who tries to tell the White House, hey, something's cooking. This is bad news. And they won't give you access to POTUS. They just say, this guy's a crackpot until they figure out, somebody go back and get Don Day. He might have been right about this. So are we going to freeze over Wyoming like the day after tomorrow?
It's happened in the past. Do I think it's going to happen over the next week? No. But I tell you this, we're looking at some potential, really cold air coming into the region just after and something that we'll talk about as we get a little bit closer. But some of those are going to run out of luck eventually.
Yeah. So why? I mean, we saw the things, this bomb cyclone, we see it spinning. It's impressive. It's organized. It's big, and it's pulling moisture from huge areas of the ocean and shoving that inland and heading for us. Where is it getting the cold? Is that where the cold's coming from, or is that another thing that's coming down from the north?
No, it got the cold from the North Pacific. The Gulf of Alaska, the waters between Korea and the Aleutians. That's the birthplace for a lot of the storms. Even some of the cold air masses that come off of Siberia. We tend to think of weather, just here, or when you look at a weather map, whether you're watching the Weather Channel or a TV news thing, where do the weather maps stop? They don't show you much more off the West Coast.
Yeah.
But to really understand what's going on here, we got to be looking. We talked about upstream. You got to be looking way further back to really get a good grasp on how things are evolving and put it together. I wish somebody just would upset the apple cart one day and just do a TV weather presentation showing this the Pacific Ocean. And then, it'd make it a lot interesting. But then someone would yell, well, I can't see where Aunt Gladys's weather is going to be in Atlanta. So, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't do TV. This is why I do this. So I can do it the way I want to.
Interesting. So we all learned the world's not flat, especially to a weather forecaster. You want to know what's off the edge of that weather map. What's on the other side of that thing? Interesting. And I wanted to blame California on sending us weather, but really it's a Russian export, apparently.
Let's not go down that road.
All right. All right, we won't, because we do have Senator Brasso coming on. He might be able to do something about that and tell the Russian, hey, we had the weather that you're bringing. No more of that. I don't know. We'll blame it on the Aleutian Islands. I don't know anyone who lives there. Those Aleutians, quit sending us this cold weather. But what's it look like for the weekend? I mean, we're going to have it looks like a decent weekend.
It's going to start okay.
Yeah.
I will say this, that most of the state on Saturday will have some pretty good weather, except the extreme western border of the state is going to be clipped by some of the moisture from this Pacific storm. So it's going to be snowing. It was snow showered along the Idaho-Wyoming border up into the Yellowstone Park area. Really, tomorrow into Saturday, even today, a few snow flurries around. But it's once we get into Sunday and Monday, it starts to get colder. So this is one of those weekends we can't say good for the whole week. We'll start to see the weather get colder. That I-80 corridor, the southern and southwest parts of the state will see enough snow showers to make roads slick. And then this is something we can talk more about tomorrow, Jake, is that I do think we're going to have our hands full next week, not only in Wyoming, but other states in terms of travel-related concerns with the weather with Thanksgiving coming up.
Yeah, getting to grandmother's house and, the turkey, which is too big to put in the refrigerator, so we like to put on the porch. You might not be able to find it Thursday morning with the snow, maybe. But
the raccoons.
That raccoon. Yeah, he will drag that thing right on out of here. I'm glad you remembered. Thanks for the reminder. All right, Don, appreciate it.
See you later.
Fantastic weather forecast. Day weather forecast. Don Day joins us 7:20 Why am I back little again? All right. I got to... The challenge is, if you're listening on radio only, or if you're just listening on the podcast, or if you're just listening and not watching. Yeah, I'm just having continual problems with the camera, and I'm not tech savvy enough. Figure it out. That's not a good look. Let's go to now it doesn't even work. All right. Maybe we fixed it. Maybe. Fingers crossed. Yeah, because we got to get this together before Senator Barrasso joins the discussion. I got to get my act together. 7:26, we do have time to pop in now on these stories. This is the stories that just won't quit here regarding the transgender stuff. Beginning with close to home, and that's the Mountain West Conference. The fact that nobody wants to play San Jose State because they've got a male-born player playing on the girls' volleyball team. There's two lawsuits currently. There's strongly worded letters to the Mountain West Conference, including one from signing on to that letter is Senator Barrasso. So the feds have gotten involved, saying Mountain West, do the right thing, get it together. And the latest story from Claire McFarland, who is Mountain West Conference Saga, which originally put Blair Fleming in the crosshairs. She's the player that was born male, that has transitioned, that is on the volleyball team. She's one of the star players for the Spartans. Some colleges have refused to play San Jose, saying it's not fair. She's a man. She hits harder, and it's not safe. It's also not fair to women. Women who are born women who are asked to compete against someone who was born male. That's not fair. So 2 lawsuits, strongly worded letter to the Mountain West Conference, and the Mountain West Conference reaction today in Claire McFarland's story, to me, is one of deflection. It does not address the issues. Will the Mountain West Conference continue to allow transgender players? NCAA does. Mountain West Conference does. Although the policies concerning transgender players seem to be in flux or seem to be hastily drawn up in the last few weeks. That's the accusation of the lawsuits. One of the lawsuits says the Mountain West Conference has only recently made a refusal to play, a forfeiture against teams with a transgender player. They have made that count as a loss. And that's news to some schools. That's in the lawsuit. Mountain West Conference answered to the suits and to these letters and to everybody saying that they've got to fix things. Gloria Navarez, the director of the conference, says all this seems made up in order to affect the upcoming tournament. This seems to be hastily made up in an emergency, quote unquote, from the Mountain West Conference. So, I mean, to me, they haven't really answered any of the questions. They haven't really acknowledged any of the allegations. They just said, you're doing this because you want to wreck our tournament. I'm not sure that was the intent of the 12 women, an associate coach, former the Mountain West Conference. I don't know if they're looking to derail the upcoming tournament. I think they just want their constitutional rights respected, and they want some clear policy moving forward on what the Mountain West Conference intends to do. Should there be another Blair Fleming, or what they intend to do with this Blair Fleming, a transgender player? Not clear, and it's not made any clearer when the Mountain West Conference muddies the waters by answering back allegations with, oh, you're just trying to wreck our party. That doesn't get there for me. Here's some photos from the story Claire McFarland has, Mountain West Conference commissioner. I think I called her a director, president, commissioner, director, whatever. She's the top cheese. The buck stops there. Gloria Navarez on the inset there is being sued, or her conference being sued by dozens of players over the transgender issue. Is Claire chimed in on this story? No, she doesn't. So we don't have her take. But Claire McFarland's been following this, the story that every day I think has at least quieted down a little, and then it's suddenly right back in the news. It's right back in national news as well. This story also from Claire McFarland is interesting. Harriet Hageman, and other members of the U.S. House of Representatives voiced support Wednesday for a new House rule banning males from women's bathrooms and locker rooms throughout the U.S. Capitol complex. Why has this now suddenly come up? Is somebody trying to ruin a tournament? Actually, it's come up. It doesn't take X-ray vision to see why this has suddenly come up. Who uses what bathroom at the U.S. Capitol complex? It's come up because we have just recently voted in the first openly transgender person into the House, and that would be McBride. This is a young lady from Delaware, I want to say. Yeah, Delaware Democrat Sarah McBride elected as the first openly transgender member of Congress. So when she gets there and they take a bathroom break after discussing bill after bill, which bathroom is Sarah McBride going to be allowed to go to? That's terribly important all of a sudden for everybody on Capitol Hill. The controversy erupted after Representative Nancy Mace out of South Carolina introduced a resolution Monday that would ban transgender women from using women's restrooms and changing rooms in the Capitol. And McBride, and I have to agree with the transgender lady here, Sarah McBride, who basically says this is a solution in search of a problem. She tweeted on X, calling the bathroom movement a distraction from real issues. McBride said, I'm not here to fight about bathrooms. I'm here to fight for all Delawareans. Whoa, is that what they call people from Delaware? And bring down costs facing families, McBride wrote. So I like her focus. She's not going to get dragged into the mud over this. I know it's an issue, and I know it burns deep, and it burns hot for a lot of Americans. Men are men, women are women, and that's it kind of thing. There's actually a pretty strong quote in here, other than McBride's. Where the heck is it? Johnson. I like this. House Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican out of Louisiana. His latest quote is, a man is a man, and a woman is a woman, and a man cannot become a woman, he said Tuesday in an announcement. Hallelujah. Amen. Is what a lot of people would say. A man's a man, a woman's a woman, and a man cannot become a woman. Yet, men are becoming women. And where they go to the bathroom is the hot topic in Washington. And what sport teams they can play on is the hot topic in Wyoming and the Mountain West Conference right now. Republican Representative Harriet Hageman voiced support for the new rule Wednesday in an email to Cowboy State Daily. She acknowledged women volleyball players battling a similar issue of controversy. Hageman wrote, "As leaders, we cannot be unwilling to do what we have to do." As leaders, we cannot be unwilling to do what we have expected girls across the country to do. Our UW girls stood up to nonsense, and I will do the same in D.C. We have every right to demand safety in women's sports and privacy in women's spaces. That's Representative Harriet Hageman on the issue over the first openly transgender member of Congress, Sarah McBride out of Delaware, who says this is all a lot to do with nothing. She said, "I'll go to whatever bathroom you want me to use, but I'm here to make sure the people of Delaware are well represented in the nation's capital." We get right back to it and welcome into the Zoom room and onto the show, U.S. Senator from the great state of Wyoming, John Barrasso. And congrats on the is dismayed to learn it does not come with an actual whip.
Well, I'll talk to Jimmy Orr and see if he can give me one, or I'm sure up in County 22, loving the license plate behind you, I'm sure I can find a nice one someplace on the streets of Jackson.
I mean, Christy Nome has a flamethrower, for Pete's sake.
Yeah.
I mean, if it gets western in Washington, I'd like to know a guy from Wyoming is going to be able to handle himself there.
Well, you got the cap. You have the King Ropes hat on, so I can always go to Sheridan to see if I can find a good whip there. They have great ropes.
We might have to get some swag headed your way. So, let's talk Election Tuesday. The American electorate issued a clear mandate. You said to get this country back on track. Americans are concerned with their grocery bills and an open border, and you're ready to get to work on those.
Oh, absolutely on both. And I'll tell you, it's such a decisive victory by President Trump. I talked to him Saturday, and really the most satisfying, because it wasn't just the Electoral College. It was a huge, overwhelming win in the Electoral College and the popular vote by millions of votes. And I don't know, Jake, if you saw the map where they showed how things were trending. I think President Trump's 50 states and just overwhelming, which sends a clear message. Americans tired of what we've had for the last 4 years. And clearly, I saw that in Wyoming. And I was traveling with President Trump a couple of days together for his rally there, and then went to Arizona together where he did the Tucker Carlson show. 20,000 people in both arenas. And in both places, that just you could feel the energy and incredible energy. And we're continuing to work. He's starting to come up with members of his cabinet, names for his cabinet. I met with Pete Hegseth this morning, as well as J.D. Vance, because as coming in as the whip, you want to make sure the president has and his nominees have the votes, because the president ought to be able to surround himself with people they trust, people they respect, people they want to work with. And that's what the president's doing with his cabinet. It was with Marco Rubio last night as we were voting until after midnight on the floor of the Senate and talking about the direction of the country. People want to get the country back on track. And as you know, only 1 out of 4 people thought the country was heading in the right direction. So it's not a surprise that President Trump won, but the overwhelming majority that he got, I think, was very satisfying to him, and that the message rang true of the border as well as the prices.
I think President-elect Trump admitted to a learning curve in Trump 1 in 2016. And you look now, Trump 2, we're on the precipice of it. And he's already building a bold cabinet, beginning with seasoned pro Susie Wiles. So happy for her, first woman chief of staff. Other more eyebrow-raising picks, but the whole thing looks like a preparation to hit the ground running. I mean, January 20th for the president, January 3rd, I think, for you. Are you ready to get right after this and turns around immediately?
Well, we are, and I talked to Susie yesterday. President Trump has been moving ahead much faster pace than the last time in 2016 when he was elected. And I think he was, hoping to win then, but he's learned the tricks of the trade and has seen what it's like the first go around, and now he knows what to expect and is prepared to get there. And we get sworn in, the Senate gets sworn in on January 3rd. At that point, we move from being in the minority with 49 members to 53 members of the Senate on the Republican side. And we're going to be able to start holding hearings on these nominees. And every one of these hearing deserves a fair process and deserves a timely vote. And that's what we're promising all of the nominees, and I promised President Trump when I talked to him this weekend. That's where we're headed. And he gets sworn in on January 20th. That's the inauguration day. So we can't really vote on nominees because they haven't been formally nominated until he becomes president. But then we want to move ahead quite quickly in getting his cabinet in place so he can hit the ground running. And he's ready, and he needs a team in place to go into the agencies and do the kind of, as we talk about, draining the swamp that needs to be done.
One of the things near and dear to Wyoming and you, energy, whether we're talking lavish EV tax credits or parking drilling pads on public land, the Biden administration has ignored our own domestic oil, gas, and coal here at home. They've left America energy dependent at the hands of our enemies. And, getting back to doing our thing, becoming a world superpower, it begins really with energy. How you're on the Energy Committee. We got an outgoing chair, the incoming chair, Mike Lee, Utah. I mean, can this committee affect immediate change as far as domestic energy production, which is helpful to the Wyoming economy, we know?
Because we know that Joe Biden and the Democrats took the sledgehammer to American energy. Remember, his first day, he did an executive order which canceled the Keystone XL pipeline. Joe Biden did. And that energy war continued all the way throughout. And, they didn't make a dent in the climate change. I mean, let's face it, but they hurt our economy, and not just the overall economy. It drove up gas prices, drove heating oil prices, drove up prices for families who were just trying to pay their bills. It added to the food costs, because if your transportation costs are up, the production costs, you talk to the ranchers in Wyoming, what it costs to produce the food that we eat and get it to the marketplace, all of those things, and it added to a massive inflation. Prices up 20% between when President Trump left office and now when he's coming back into office. So yes, from an energy standpoint, we can do things on the committee, but immediately President Trump can take the handcuffs off of energy, unleash American energy to help get prices down. On the plane with him when we were flying between Arizona and Nevada last week, a week before the election, he's like, we need energy. We need American energy. We cannot be dependent on foreign sources of energy. And he said, plus, we do it better and cleaner in America, and he pointed to me, and in Wyoming, than they do it in, name your spot, Venezuela, Iran, all over the world. We are the best land in Wyoming. Wyoming is the place that people want to keep to come. So we have the resources. We are America's energy breadbasket. We're a powerhouse of energy, and we're going to be able to do a lot more, both the Energy Committee, but more having President Trump there. And, look at his nominees for the Secretary of Energy, for the Secretary of Interior. I mean, to what we have now with Deb Haaland, it's night and day. He's a governor of North Dakota, knows energy, knows it well. And in terms of the Department of Interior, federal government owns half of the land in the state of Wyoming. He gets it completely. He and I were on the campaign trail the weekend, actually the day before Election Day. He and I were together out there campaigning on the stump for President Trump and for Senate candidates. And but he's going to be just terrific as Secretary of Interior. And the same thing with the Secretary of Energy. The Secretary of Energy has more to do with nuclear power and nuclear energy than the Secretary of Interior, which is public lands and all the energy permits.
Look what we found out on Election Day, something you've been saying all along. The border is important, people, securing the border. You stuck to your guns even when it seemed every right-wing hardliner left. You voted no foreign aid to Ukraine until we secured our own borders. Your resoluteness is so Wyoming. You've represented this state well that way. Even Democrat West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, outgoing chair of the Energy Committee, said, you are hyper partisan, but you're strong, you're tough, and you're all Wyoming. How important is it for you to make decisions 2,000 miles from Wyoming, keeping Wyoming in mind when it's issues like the border?
Well, number one, I'll be in Wyoming tonight. Cynthia and I had a meeting this morning, and we were meeting with some of the House Caucus members of the Western Caucus. We get home every weekend. We travel the state. I'm going to do it this weekend as well. And then, as I do every Thanksgiving, and this is coming up next week, probably leave Wyoming on Tuesday to go visit with our troops. I've done it now for every year I've been in the Senate, and we have a large deployment of Wyoming National Guard in the Persian Gulf. Eyeball to eyeball with Iran, and we have 2 different bases, and I plan to be with them on Thanksgiving to thank them because they're about 10 time zones away. And I've done this every year. Last year was in South Korea at Camp Humphreys, the year before at Okinawa. Wherever our troops are, I want to be with them to tell them on behalf of the people of Wyoming, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for your service to the country. Thanking you for keeping us safe and free. And you know what they want to talk about? They want to talk about Wyoming. They want to talk about the weather. They want to talk about the hunting season. And they want to talk about Wyoming football. And I hope that we win Saturday evening in Laramie so I can share the good news with all of our soldiers come Thanksgiving Day next Thursday.
It's going to be a heavy lift, but I hope so too. Yeah. It seems like this transgender issue at home in Wyoming, nationally now, with the first openly transgender member of Congress, who uses whose bathroom, who competes against who in sports. It's important to you. You've weighed in, even conference issue.
Well, I have, as has the entire delegation. And the University of Wyoming team that decided to forfeit rather than play. I think that was the right decision. Cynthia and Harriet and I, uniform approach to that. It was astonishing during the presidential campaign where they played the commercial with Kamala Harris said, talking about what, transgender surgery paid for illegal immigrants and for inmates. And my God, I think that was the final telling point. These people are so far to the left; they're off the cliff. And touch, not just with the people around me, out of touch with the average American who just tries to get by, put food on the table, get the kids off to school, get them an education and a better life for them as well. So yeah, you're right. There's you just go to Cowboy State Daily today. There's stories about the transgender athlete as well as what's happening in Congress and Harriet issue, and it's a House issue with a new member coming into the House, but we work together as a delegation all of the time, and we travel the state extensively. And I think Cynthia and Harriet and I are all going to try to be in Casper on Saturday morning. There's a meeting of the incoming members, and we're going to try to meet with them and give them encouragement as they head off. Some are veterans coming back, but many are newly elected, and it's an adventure for them and an opportunity to learn and a focus on the future of Wyoming.
Just two more things, Senator. We know your time is tight this morning. You have the medical background, orthopedic surgeon, makes you, I think, uniquely qualified to analyze America's healthcare system and maybe dig into COVID. I don't know any president could have handled that perfectly, the whole pandemic thing during Trump 1. But you saw some things, because I think it was the beginning of Americans' distrust of government and seeing some overreach. You voted against the American Rescue Plan, a $1.9 trillion handout, which you called, my paraphrase, a blue party payoff, liberal spending spree. What did we learn from the pandemic? What can we do better if, heaven forbid, there's another one?
Yeah, and in terms of the vaccine, I'm pro-vaccine and anti-mandate. And I think what we learned is you can't just mandate people to do something and expect them to do something. They need to have some knowledge and make some decisions. And so I thought it was important that the government work to come up and develop a vaccine. Or I think where the government overreached and got it wrong, in addition to so many of the shutdowns that were done across the country, that in terms of the vaccine, is that they really, I think, oversold the necessity of it and underplayed the real risks that were involved, that were real and consequential to people. And there should have been a much better explanation. And I think they didn't know at the time, and that's the concern. The thing that I was talking about this morning with a number of after January, after the Afghanistan withdrawal, the loss of our 13 soldiers, including Riley McCullum from Teton County, where you are, County 22. He was our state wrestling champion. I saw his son, his dad, Jim, just the other day. He's now gotten the Congressional Gold Medal. It's 6 days after that, that's when Joe Biden put into place the mandatory vaccine for the military. And to me, that was a decision to change the topic so they weren't talking about Afghanistan, that people were talking about mandatory vaccines. And I was talking to Pete Hegseth today, who's the nominee to be the Secretary of the Defense. And in visiting with him, my concern has been, by doing this, that really discouraged people from our home state of Wyoming. We saw recruitment is down, discouraged people from going into the military. So we're going to see a big change in the military with the new administration, and this whole woke and weaponized military is going to have to change and get back to what we know is there to defend the country, not to do the sort of things that we've seen over the last 4 years. So it's kind of a long answer to the question of what have we learned, but it is the ripple effects that of what happened and the detrimental things that happened to our state and to our nation and to our own national security as a result of a pandemic that had very, very many unseen impacts that continue to impact us today.
Before we let you go, I have to ask, because I'm watching the political trajectory from GOP conference chair in 2010, policy committee chair 2012, conference chair in 2018, now the majority whip. I'm seeing the rise, Senator Barrasso. Is there any ambitions in the future? Any Oval Office ambitions? Where are you heading next? I know we got a lot to do now, but
I'm heading to Wyoming tonight. My focus is the people of Wyoming and the future of Wyoming and the state, and making lives better for the people in Wyoming at home.
God bless Wyoming and the country. Thank you, Senator, for representing the state so well. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me this morning. Appreciate it, Jake.
You bet. U.S. Senator John Barrasso representing Wyoming and Washington. I wouldn't wish that trip on anyone to hang out in Washington, but thankfully we got the best doing it for us. Senator Barrasso on the show today. We'll take a quick break, get to the top of the hour news right after these. You're enjoying the Cowboy State.
Show with Jake.
Cowboy State Daily Show with me. Yeah, Jake and the Senator. Wow, how blessed are we? How fortunate are we to have U.S. Senator John Barrasso on the show? This is a guy normally who's hanging out with, suit and ties, meet the press, and then he's slumming it this morning with me Daily Show. But it just shows you his continued ties to the state and his Wyomingness, and we're going to have to send him an actual whip because I'm worried about him on the Senate floor when things get Western over there in Washington. A fella from Wyoming wants to have a whip, especially if the post is called the majority whip. Yeah, we might have to get on that. So yeah, alert to our bosses. Let's all pitch in and get him a framed bullwhip with the inscription. Yeah, when things get Western in Washington, get Western with him with this whip. Top of the hour, it's time now to check in with our news and Wendy Core. Let's do that.
It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming. I'm Wendy Core, bringing you stories from the Cowboy State Daily Newsroom for Thursday, November 21st. With a years-long steady decline of Wyoming coal production, setting up 2024 to come in less than 200 million tons for the first time in 32 years, the workforce mining that coal also continues to shrink. Through the third quarter of this year, employment at Wyoming coal mines is down almost 8% from the end of 2023, according to Cowboy State Daily's Greg Johnson.
The natural correlation is as production wanes, fewer people are needed to produce less coal, so those jobs are leaving. Now, those skills do transfer to other industries, the trona mines, to the oil fields, but those coal jobs, they're some of the highest paying jobs in Wyoming.
But there's a trickle-down effect the coal mines have on other businesses that service them. Less business for local welders, electricians, well service companies, and others that contract with the mines and employ more of the local workforce. A dispute over state-owned land has been causing an uproar in the Sundance area. The state has refused to put fencing around a 4,714-acre parcel of scenic canyon lands bought by the state in 2020. This has led to cattle from neighboring land users drifting onto the parcel and frustrating ranchers. Cowboy State Daily's Leah Wolfson reports that Crook County Sheriff Jeff Hodge has refused to write tickets for trespassing and has been petitioning the Office of State Lands and Investments to change its stance.
State legislators like Representative Chip Nyman have also petitioned the state to give the land for leasing back to the previous renter, a Schloret. The issue has become quite contentious.
The biggest problem with the land predicament is deciding who should pay for fencing to separate the state and private parcels, a cost Hodge has estimated would run as much as $380,000. The question of whether a Wyoming college student recklessly shot and killed his friend during a winter duck hunt is too big for just one judge to decide and should go to a jury instead. That's what a judge on Monday determined after dismissing the dismissal request filed by the attorney for 20-year-old Gage Zook. Recklessly is integral to the charge he faces and is too big of a question for a judge to dispose of on his own.
Gage Zook said, there's not enough evidence for this. Judge, you should throw it out. It's not fair to bring it before a jury. And the judge said, actually, this is exactly the kind of thing juries are supposed to decide. And for me to throw out your case would be to rob the jury of its sacred duty.
Zook slaughter in April for the January 20th death of his friend, 19-year-old Maurizio Dodden. I'll be back with more news right after this.
Did you know it's illegal to dig or excavate without knowing what's below? This is Jan Warren, Executive Director for One Call of Wyoming. We will be hosting workshops around the state to educate homeowners, realtors, landscapers, underground facility owners, and excavators on the state law, industry best practices when it comes to planting a tree, building a fence, or any other excavation project you have planned. Join us for a free breakfast, get your questions answered, and learn how One Call of Wyoming is here to help. Go to onecallofwyoming.com and register today.
Wyoming's only member of the U.S. House of Representatives voiced support Wednesday for a new House rule banning males from the women's bathrooms and locker rooms throughout the U.S. Capitol complex. They introduced a resolution to that effect on Monday, weeks after Delaware Democrat Sarah McBride was elected as the first openly transgender member of Congress. Representative Harriet Hageman voiced support for the new rule in a Wednesday email to Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland.
The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, basically enacted it Wednesday, but the statement notes that there's lots of unisex bathrooms throughout the facility.
McBride issued a Wednesday statement to X, formerly Twitter, calling the bathroom movement a distraction from real issues. And as Colorado prepares to reintroduce more wolves, increased worry over them being shot has prompted a conservation group to set up a $50,000 reward fund for wolf poaching tips. Members of the Rocky Mountain Wolf Project told Outdoors reporter Mark Hines the timing of its announcement Thursday was prompted by a bullet wound recently found in a Colorado wolf carcass.
Now, the bullet was not what killed the wolf. Bullet wound was found. That are people going to try to start to poach wolves in Colorado?
Some Colorado ranchers have expressed increasing frustration. One family near the Wyoming state line said their ranch had become, quote, a grocery store for wolves. That's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting the daily newsletter button on cowboystatedaily.com. I'm Wendy Corr for Cowboy State Daily.
Cowboy State Daily Morning Show with Jake continues.
I do not know why I keep getting small. Yeah, we're back. Mark Hines will join the conversation here in a little bit. Our outdoor reporter. He's got a couple of stories recently that are going to be of interest to anyone and everyone. Colorado, the wolf that was found with a bullet hole in it, and a reward for anyone knows anything about people shooting at wolves. Colorado wolf reintroduction continues with a new batch of wolves being released in Colorado. And looks like there's a little bit of resistance there to the Lobo, as there has been in Wyoming as well. Just a little bit. Mark will talk about that, and scaring away bears using drones, which I think is a great idea and a great way to keep the game wardens safe, right? And other forest rangers and personnel You don't like to get too close to the grizz when you're chasing them away. Drone use, a really smart idea, especially if the drones can play recorded messages like "Get the heck out of here, Bruin," or some Iron Maiden, or Black Sabbath. Sorry, Iron Man's Black Sabbath's Iron Man. Yeah, we'll have some fun with that with Mark when he pops on. But that latest story, Colorado wolf found with a bullet wound and then perfectly timed, is a $50,000 reward offered for not just this incident, but any wolf poaching tips. It's obviously illegal to harvest a wolf in both Wyoming and Colorado. In Colorado, you're not even allowed to shoot a wolf that's harassing your livestock or killing your livestock, which is pretty tough. What is your, the SSS, shoot, shovel, shut up, is your only course of action, I guess, as a rancher in Colorado. But the reward has been in the works for months, according to the group offering it, the Rocky Mountain Wolf Project. But it seemed like a good time to announce it, as this bullet wound was recently found in a Colorado wolf. A carcass was found. The wolf was dead, according to the necropsy. Finding a bullet wound in the wolf made the timing right, said Rob Edward of the Rocky Mountain Wolf Project, co-founder and president at the time. It made that timing right for the tip reward fund. By the way, the bullet wound is not believed to have caused the wolf to die, or maybe not have even encumbered it in too much of a way. It was a egg of a wolf that was discovered dead in Grand County, Colorado in September by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. It was identified as Wolf 2307. The wound was discovered in one of the animal's legs. The bullet probably wasn't what killed it. It was likely killed by another wolf, according to FWS. Wolves fight to the death over territorial disputes. This follows a discovery of a bullet wound, the discovery of the bullet wound sparked speculation over whether it had been shot in Colorado or back in its home state of Oregon. They had tracked this Wolf 2307 from Oregon, or was it shot in Wyoming? Nobody's going to know the answer to that unless information that could pay a pretty penny, $50,000 reward for any kind of wolf poaching information that could be shared with authorities. This Mark Hines story appears in the Cowboy State Daily today. Yesterday was the story about scaring grizzly bears away using drone speakers. I like the idea, especially the music. What kind of music soothes the savage beast? What kind of music scares bears away? I don't know. I guess you have to ask the authorities. We'll have to ask Mark Hines when he pops into the Zoom room. Here he is now, our own Mark Hines. Mark, what's happening, man?
Hey, Jake, how's it going?
Did we talk about chasing bears with drones yet?
I don't think we talked about that one yet.
I don't think I talked about it with Greg. But yeah, I don't think I talked about it with you. A story a couple of days ago from Mark Hines. I mean, I love the idea of using drones. It seems a lot safer than, the crack shots, having to go out there and shoo a bear away. Let the drone do the heavy lifting. And
go out and do in the brush with the grizzly bear. Yeah.
But
I can definitely see the advantage there.
While drones are annoying to you and I, the buzzing, they don't really scare bears. So we've had to supplement the drone with speakers.
Yep. Speakers, lights, that sort of thing. Although it didn't work in Colorado on that little black bear that was up a tree in Golden.
Yeah,
they tried blasting Iron Man at it. It didn't work.
The black bear that here we go.
But yeah, that wildlife manager up in Montana told me that sometimes they'll yell at the bear over drone speakers, and that helps. So
Yeah, which I like that because also now we're assuming we'll talk about, the fatigue of that and when it doesn't work anymore because bears are very smart. But the idea is associating human voice coming up. Potentially, if you or I ran into this bear and yelled at it, he would think the same thing, like, "Oh, this dude can fly."
They're trying to build a negative association with humans. In other words, they want bears to avoid humans, which that's important. As the bears continue to inhabit that prairie land up there in Montana. That they stay away from. Grain silos are a big draw for them, cattle carcasses, that sort of thing. Just the kind of stuff that's going to get them in trouble and get humans in danger is what they don't want the bears to be hanging out. So,
yeah, well, it's a unique method and it works until it doesn't work. As you mentioned in the story, bears are quick to adapt.
Yeah, that's what they told me. They said they try to be judicious with the use of it, so they don't wear it out. So the bear just doesn't, basically go, this dumb thing again.
Yeah.
So.
One of these. Yeah. The bears not only learn how not to fear drones, but that they can actually change the batteries in them for you after a while. They'd be like, let me take this thing.
I imagine probably they could. Grizzly bears are really smart. Yeah.
Yeah. We got a wolf with a bullet hole in it in Colorado, Wolf 2307. Let me ask you right off the bat, before we get into this story, what do you think? You and I have been out there in the wild, and it's one of the most often asked questions is, how do you tell the difference between a wolf and a coyote? They look the same to me, other than size. Could somebody mistake a coyote, which you can shoot on sight, with a wolf? Could it be a mistake, or do you think people know what they're shooting at?
There was a claim of that in Colorado, either 2015 or 2017. A guy in Colorado shot what he thought was a coyote, and it turned out to be a wolf. Had probably come from Wyoming. Just from what I know, I think from what people have told me, the length of the legs is a dead giveaway. The couple times I've seen wolves in the wild, there was no mistaking what it was. Yeah, and that just the length, they're tall. It doesn't sink into your brain how tall they are until you see one, and so the length of the legs and just the overall body size, and the wolves I've seen were shaggier than any coyotes. I don't know if that was just the time of year I was seeing them, but I think like that situation in 2015 in Colorado where the guy mistakenly shot one, it might have been a juvenile wolf that was out wandering around by itself, and so that could have that could have played into it.
This incident happened in Colorado. This wolf was found dead, not by the gunshot, but found dead, maybe fighting with other wolves. But there's a bullet in him, and there's a group that is trying to protect poaching of wolves, and they've offered a reward, perfectly timed with this incident.
Yeah, they've been working on this reward program for a while, but they said the timing was good. The timing to make the announcement was good because, and of course, they still haven't determined, or Fish, Wildlife, and Parks still hasn't come out with any definitive statement about whether they think that wolf was shot in Colorado or if that was even an older wound from when it was in Oregon. People seem to be leaning toward it happened in Colorado because supposedly they caught that wolf on video limping, shortly before it turned up dead. And, they think the cause of death was it got into a fight with another wolf, and wolves are known to fight to hurt of it all. So.
Yeah. Excuse my ignorance about anything that happens outside of Wyoming, but Wyoming's all I care about. Catch me introduction. We all know about the wolves reintroduced in Yellowstone in the 90s. What are our neighboring states doing? What's Colorado? When did this start? And I think there's another batch to be introduced. What's going on in Colorado?
Correct. It started with a ballot initiative in 2020, which just barely passed, and that's been heavily criticized. All the people on the Front Range, the metropolitan people, voted for wolves to be reintroduced, and of course the yes votes took it by just a fraction of a percentage. So that was in 2020, and then at the end of last year, December of 2023, they finally brought some wolves in. They captured some wolves in Oregon and brought them in 10. And so those wolves have been hanging around, for about a year, and I think various causes. None of them have been killed by humans. And then so now they're talking about bringing in another batch, this time from British Columbia, that's where I had a couple conversations with Mark Brashino. I don't know if anybody can remember him, but he was old game and fish guy. But he was actually involved with the capture of the initial group of wolves from British Columbia that they put into Yellowstone. So anyway, Colorado's going to British Columbia as well, and they're going to bring in up to 15 more that are going to be released either late this year or early next year.
And there was controversy over that brand of, or that breed of wolf being reintroduced in Wyoming. There's some folks are saying that is not the breed that was the kind of wolf, the species of wolf that was here. It's not a Mexican Lobo, but people say that Canadian wolf is bigger, heavier, thicker. I don't know.
My answer to that would be are the elk? Do the elk in Canada have superpowers? Because that's that the thing of it is that where they caught them from in British Columbia, they were hunting elk that look and act just like our elk. Jake, I've been hearing that since the late 80s, since before when it was still conceptual. I've never come across anything that lends any real credence to that. You get way up north, you get into tundra wolves or Arctic wolves. That's a different subspecies. But I don't. I don't really think there's any credence to that. You hear it over, because like I said, the answer would be, okay, well, if are the elk supersized in Canada?
Yeah,
because that's
true.
That was their food source.
What you eat. Yeah,
yeah. Maybe they are. I don't know. If anybody knows, but no, I've never heard a really serious, knowledgeable biologist lend any credence to that. Now, you did bring up the Mexican wolves, and those are a smaller subspecies. And that's another wrinkle of what's going on in Colorado is they do have, because they're trying to recover the Mexican wolf in places like Arizona, and they're thinking some of those might push north into Colorado. Well, if these gray wolves that they're releasing mingle with the Mexican wolves, they could be a threat to the Mexican wolves because they are bigger, or you could get crossbreeding, interbreeding, and the mix. There's only so many gray wolves in Colorado right now. The gray wolf overall as a species is far from endangered. I mean, we've got a robust population here in Wyoming. They've got a ton of them in Canada, but Mexican wolves, if I understand correctly, are objectively a threatened species. So if the gray wolves and the Mexican wolves start intermingling in Colorado, that is a legitimate concern that I've heard people bring up. But again, it's the gray wolves are mostly, I think it's Arizona and New Mexico where they're trying to bring them back.
So many, there's so many issues when you try to tweak one thing in the ecosystem and other things fly out of balance. Like, it's hard. Yeah.
Another fun fact down there in the Southwest is they're getting jaguars again.
Oh, wow.
A lot of people didn't realize that jaguars are native to our country. I mean, the Southwest, Arizona, down there on the borderlands. I didn't know that until the game and fish biologist told me that a few years ago, that our mountain lions aren't the biggest cats in the U.S. Jaguars are. But you want to see one of those, you got to go to Arizona. I don't anticipate they'd come as far north as Colorado or Wyoming, but I could be wrong on that point.
Well,
who knows?
Half the cowboys I know in Wyoming are in Arizona for the winter, so maybe they'll see one down there.
Maybe they'll see a jaguar?
Yeah, in Wickenburg.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Well, thanks for joining us.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Mark Hines on the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show and sharing a couple of stories. His today, the Colorado wolf found with a bullet wound has led to a $50,000 reward on that or any other wolf poaching incident down there in Colorado. And the way to scare away grizzly bears, maybe drones. It depends on what music they're playing. Mark Hines had both those stories in the Cowboy State Daily. Let's rodeo. What do you say? The Western Ag Network's Rodeo Roadshow with Will Rasmussen now.
Show on the Western Ag Network. Hi, everybody. I'm Will Rasmussen. Good to have you along. The countdown continues on the road rodeo in Las Vegas. Today, we're at the number 10 position in each of our events that we'll watch at the Wrangler National Finals Rodeo. The number 10s are coming up. We have them next on the Road Show.
The Vermilion Ranch Fall Performance Sale is November 29th in Montana. On Friday the 29th, 1,500 of Montana's best fancy commercial bred heifers sell. Then Saturday the 30th, 320 performance bulls sell. 170 outstanding fall yearlings and 150 big stout coming twos. The top of the fall breeding program with genetics from Vermilion Leo, Sit Savvy, and more. View lots and bid live on Northern Livestock Video. Friday sale starts at 1 o'clock, Saturday at 11 a.m. at Pays in Billings, Montana.
Ready for a real PRF partner? At Ag Risk Advisors, this isn't our first rodeo. We are one of the most experienced in pasture rangeland forage. Honesty, commitment, trust. Many companies use these words. At Ag Risk Advisors, we earn them.
The deadline to enroll in pasture rangeland forage insurance is December 1st. Visit prfadvisors.com to enroll.
Headed back for his second consecutive Wrangler National Finals rodeo is Jacob Lees out of Caldwell, Idaho, the Indian National Finals champion as well. In the steer wrestling, he's been there before. He's won a world title. Helena, Montana's Ty Erickson, number 10 in the steer wrestling. In the team roping, legendary Luke Brown out of Rock Hill, South Carolina in the heading department. Stephenville, Texas healer Colby Payne is number 10 in his specialty. There is the Hay family once again. His older brother Logan will go. Saddle bronc rider Dawson Hay to his fifth National Finals rodeo. Wildwood to Canada, the next generation. His daddy was an all-time great. In the tie-down roping, Zach Youngblood out of Iowa, Louisiana. Tie-down roper Zach Youngblood, number 10. Breakaway roper Macy Young from Whitman, Arizona. She's never been there in the breakaway. 71-year-old Donna K. Rule in the barrel race. Back to the NFR. Anybody can win a world title. Once you get there, Donna K. Rule is back. And for the very first time in the bull riding, Cooper James from Erda, Utah, a qualification to the NFR in the bull riding. On the Rodeo Road, Smithson on the Western Ag Network.
Cowboy State Daily Morning Show with Jake continues.
Yeah, back to it. Did he say 71-year-old barrel racer? Barrel racer number 11 in the world was 71 years old? That can't be. I got to double check that. Wow. Our resident cowboy, Kevin Meyer, will be joining the conversation here in just a little bit. We'll talk about all the issues and news of the day with him, see what the cowboy take is on everything, the horse sense on everything. Meanwhile, this story from Dale Killingback in the Cowboy State Daily about the wind turbine farm that is doing nothing. It's just sitting there for the last 3 years. The turbines haven't been. It's odd. Hold on. Let's get in the Zoom room. Get Kevin in here first. I think our first order of business is doing nothing. There we go. Our first order of business, Kevin, over there at Mance Creek Horses, do you have a designated men's and women's room? Do you have a unisex or transgender bathroom, or do you just pee on whatever sagebrush is available?
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is whichever side of the barn the wind is not blowing.
There you go. That solves your whole gender bathroom issue right there. It's just take, man, and it suddenly becomes less important. I like that. I was just talking with Mark Hines about this Colorado wolf that was found with a bullet hole in it. And I was wondering whether you think it'd be legitimate that someone could mistake a coyote for a wolf or a wolf for a coyote. Now, a coyote in Wyoming, and I'm not sure about Colorado, but in Wyoming, coyotes are persona non grata. No, not many ranchers or anybody likes them. It's like shoot on sight for the most part. But a wolf is under protection. Would you? I mean, do you know what you're shooting at when you got a dog in your sights?
Generally speaking, I think you do. Whenever I hear somebody say, I'm not sure if that's a wolf or a coyote, that means they've never seen a wolf. From a far distance, they can be colored a little bit the same, but I can tell you from my own personal experience, I've drawn one up in my scope, and I realized really quickly that was not a coyote that I was aiming at.
Because it didn't fit in the scope. Yeah, they're big. They're just big.
And the other part is they have coyotes. They kind of, I don't know how to describe it other than they kind of bounce along.
I was going to say bounce.
Wolves, they just kind of skate along real level.
Exactly. You'll see some of the difference in those gaits in actual domestic dogs. And yes, the difference is this bouncy, it's really what you would call wasted motion. It's not what you want if you are a predator that gets its prey basically by wearing the prey down. And a wolf will trot an elk or a mule deer or whatever it's after, will just trot it into exhaustion because that smooth gait. If you put a glass of wine on the back of a wolf, it would never spill. They're like a great trotting horse. They just have that movement, fluid. And yeah, good point. Watching them move is a big difference how you can tell the yotes from the wolves for sure.
The other part that I've really noticed, and even if it's a young wolf, is coyotes have a really bushy tail. Whereas the wolves, and they hold their tails out a little straighter, where wolves, their tail just kind of hangs down for the most part. And again, they're just more kind of a relaxed, confident animal.
Yeah. All right, let's take you to this controversy over the state versus a rancher. Pitted in the middle is a sheriff. The state representing this state-owned land has said this rancher's cows keep coming over into our land. The sheriff, you got to write them a ticket. Crook County Sheriff Jeff Hodges, who says, I'm not writing them a ticket. You've got to fence out your property if you don't want them cattle coming in. What's your experience? You pushed some cows around in your day. Wyoming's a fence-out state. What do you do when your cattle are leaking over into the neighbor's property?
Well, when I read this story, that was the part that kind of got to me. The fellow with the state land is complaining that the neighbor's cattle are coming over. Well, if there's no fence there, I'm pretty sure that's a two-way trail. And my guess is that his cattle are going over on the neighbor. And having been in a lot of big country and rough country where fences are just kind of a hopeful thought, where you can bend some wire around a rock or a tree, and then the elk are always going to come through and help you out, making sure that there's a thoroughfare to get from one pasture to the next. That's one of the fun parts of the fall works, to be quite honest with you, is your neighbors come and help you and they sort off theirs and drive them home. And I go over to neighbor and help him gather up and I'll sort off mine. And the intermingling of cattle is just part of ranching in the West, especially that real rough country, which that up there is. So you just have to be a good neighbor and you just have to expect that. I've only, in all my years of cowboying, I've only had one somewhat contentious experience with that. And this guy from out of state had bought a neighboring ranch. And I had fence really does not matter to them. They go wherever they want to go. Well, it came hunting season. And he sent me a letter that said that I couldn't go over on his place to gather up my cattle and that he was just going to hold them until the end of hunting season. Well, that isn't going to work for me. And believe me, I don't want my cattle on him either, but I also want them back so I can get them shipped off and get a paycheck for the year. Luckily, we were able to resolve that issue really, really easy without any crosswords or anything like that. But again, it just took some communication and some neighboring.
Yeah, as simple as that. Who would have? I mean, they say, strong fence makes good neighbors, but sometimes good neighbors are the fence. I mean, the fence is not needed. And yeah, you mentioned sometimes for some bigger cattle, wildlife, how many top rails have been knocked off by elk, which reminds me, fence stuff. There is a somewhat of a debate on what pronghorn will do, what antelope will do when faced with a fence. There's some people who say they never jump a fence. Antelope don't like to jump. They rather scoot under the bottom rail. Some say, hey, I've seen them jump. I've never seen an antelope jump a fence. I've seen them scoot under. What have you seen?
I've seen a few antelope jump a fence. But you are right. They don't like doing it. I've seen them scoot under it as their preferred, but I've seen them when they're really running, just dive in between the third and fourth wire and never lose a hair going at 540 mile an hour.
Yeah. Yeah.
They look like they're diving through a hole, but they make it. It's very rare that you see one is around places that had sheep fence. So it's woven wire fence on the bottom. And one or two strands of barbed wire on the top. That's about the only time I've ever seen them. And it's usually the bucks that will jump. I don't ever recall seeing a doe jump.
Interesting. Yeah, I have seen them like a missile shoot between strands, like welterweight entering the ring. The heavyweights can't do that, but we're going between the strands. But yeah, I've seen that too. It's amazing. They're so fast. Antelope are so fast. The only reason you could ever shoot them or hunt them or catch them is they're so curious. They can't help but stop and look back to see if they've left you in the dust. I mean, their immediate reaction is to bolt right out of there, and they leave a trail, and then they can't help but just, 100, 200 yards later, stop and say, "Are you still with me?" And that's their downfall. Oh boy.
I tell you, I've always been really impressed by the archery hunters that can stick an antelope with an arrow.
Yeah.
And that is really how they do it, is by curiosity. I knew a guy who had made out of plywood kind of a blind, but it looked like an antelope. And what he did was he tied a white plastic grocery bag out in front of the blind and just let it wave there in the wind. And pretty soon, here comes some antelope, wanted to check out what that bag was, and he was able to stick one.
Yeah, they're so curious to their demise. Yep, true enough. Okay, let's move right from that to pet peeves. I'll start with mine, cowboy pet peeves. And, I'm at risk of offending our guest, Kevin Meyer, because I don't know his feelings on this, but I'm going to go with back cinch so loose and saggy an antelope could jump through it. It's pointless, and it might even be dangerous with getting a back hoof through there. But those of you with the double rig saddle and you got your back cinch dragging the ground, I don't get it. Yeah, you shoot, Kevin.
Well, I will agree with that one. Simpler. It really annoys me. It's mainly people that have nothing to do with the West or the cowboy culture will pronounce it chaps instead of shaps.
Very good one. And hopefully we've given somebody a heads up not to commit that error right off the bat. Good point. Really good point. While we're on it, and on a subject of horse tack, breast collar tie down, necessary or not?
Well, for me, depending on what I'm doing, the breast collar is super necessary. And if I'm doing a lot of rope and a lot of doctoring, I've always liked having a breast collar. The tie down is a different situation. And over the years, it's gotten a really bad reputation. I don't generally ride with a tie down. However, it's a misunderstood piece of equipment, even by some of the people that use it. Really, what the tie down does is allows the horse to balance off of it. And so, for instance, when I'm training rope horses with a tie down, and a lot of the really good, like the guys that you're going to see at the NFR, they'll all be roping with a tie down, but a lot of those guys at home train their horses without. But when they go to town and they're trying to feed their family and they're trying to get a paycheck, they will use the tie down. That way, every run is just exactly the same. That way, the horse, even though he's been trained to self-carriage and have that balance just on his own, you never know what's going to happen. They trip, whatever, take a bad step. That tie down will really help them to regain their balance and have a successful run. So that's why the tie down gets used so much, especially in the roping, is to make sure every run is just as consistent as possible.
Yeah. And to be fair, for those of you who don't know, the tie down is just a piece of equipment that would prohibit a horse from getting his head up too high. Some horses, out of reaction to various things, like to get high-headed, and the head you don't want your horse's head to be constantly be tossing and up high. It's annoying, and it's sometimes, especially if you're roping, it's in the way. If you're pole bending, it's an unnecessary wasted motion. Speaking of the coyote, it's a coyote way to run poles when you would want something smoother. You want that head down. I never even thought about a horse actually using that resistance to sort of balance itself. Interesting.
Well, and what happens, and you've seen this, I know you have, because we were on the same outfit when we would see some of this. Horses that had been ridden all of their lives with a tie down, and then we were riding them around without a tie down, and those were the head thrashers. And what they were doing is they were looking for that tie down, because since they had been ridden with it all the time, it had become a crutch, and then it turned into a wheelchair. Then it turned into them being bedridden, that they did not know how to exist without the tie down.
Could be in the weeds for some of our non-cowboys, non-cowgirls. So let's change subjects to something contemporary. Although I don't have anything. I was just trying to get ready for Senator Barrasso. Not that you're second. Well, let me get rid of that.
I was going to mention something to you about that, Jake. Let's see. Last week you had on Secretary Gray.
Yep.
This week you had on Senator Barrasso, who's not just a senator, but he's also a physician. And now you're failed an IQ test.
Is that right? Well, yeah.
So you really keep setting the bar higher. It would not shock me if one of these days you text me and say, well, I'm going to push you back this week because I'm interviewing Donald Trump.
Yeah. We're going to have to bump you this week, Kevin, because of, we're moving up in the world. So, although, I don't think anything is going to move you out of your slot. You're prized. You're one of our top guests. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we talk to this guy to make horse sense of the world. Mans Creek Horses CEO, president, founder. It's Kevin Meyer in Douglas. And I want to talk next week. Remind me, today's Thursday. Yeah, next week, Tuesday. Let's talk about more about what you do on your ranch, what you do with the horses, and what you're doing in your social media. You got a podcast thing going as well. You're kind of doing what we do. So, let's learn more about you Tuesday. You want to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully I'll have some exciting news about some of those Tuesday, if everything goes right this weekend. The weather's supposed to be nice, so social media stuff is a lot easier to do if the weather's bad.
Yeah, you're inside and you don't want to stare at a computer when it's nice out. There's no way. Yeah, I hear you. All right. Well, that's your assignment over the weekend, and we'll convene Tuesday, and we're going to learn more about Cowboy Kevin Meyer. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you much. We'll see you. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too. Kevin Meyer joins us every Tuesday, Thursday, 8:30 to make horse sense of the world. That's not as easy as you might think, but it is certainly necessary. This world's gone crazy. Also on Thursday, that's an Ask Abby day, so let's get our questions prepared. I have one for Ask Abby, but we'd love more. Ask Abby's coming up at 9:30. I think we do that if I can read my own notes. So, yeah, let me flash this number again on there. You can always ask Abby through email or text is probably easier, but if you're in front of your computer and you do the email thing, we're at radio at Cowboy State Daily, cowboystatedaily.com. Feel free to fire off an email. Tell us what we're doing wrong, what we could do better, what you love, and ask Abby. We need a question for Ask Abby coming up at 9:30. Or text 307-999-TALK, 307-999-8255. Text us there and say, ask Abby this. I've always wanted to know. Feel free and get on that. This Day in History, we're going to do that next, right after this super quick break. We'll come right back with more of the show.
Show with Jake. Now, back to the show.
Back to Studio 14 in front of the hour, and we'll take a look at this day in history. If I'm reading this correctly and remembering correctly, and if this information is indeed correct, Tom Horn, a day before his birthday. Didn't we just talk yesterday about Tom Horn? And if you're from Wyoming, you know the name. He's the infamous stock detective. You know, basically the guy who put on a badge of ranchers to go out and deal with rustlers and sheep herders and anybody that cattlemen didn't like. This was Tom Horn, who would go out and handle it, usually at the end of a gun. And Tom Horn was hung, I think it was yesterday, for the killing of Willie Nickel, a teenager. And today I learned, this day in history, November 21st, Tom Horn was born in Scotland County, Missouri on this 60. So the poor guy never got to see that last birthday. He was swinging at the end of a rope day before. When they asked him, what's your last meal? He was like, birthday cake? 1865, this day, Platbort Casper. That's in honor of the late Casper Collins, who lost his life at the Battle of the Platte Bridge Station earlier that year, battling Injuns back in the day. 1865, Platte Bridge Station, renamed Fort Casper. And, of course, by now aware of the misspelling of the city of Casper in Wyoming, the second biggest city. Is Casper still second to Cheyenne in population? I think it is. And I know those two cities were in the running to be the capital, and you could have made a case for either city. Casper or Cheyenne, at the time that the capital was named, were about equal in population. I think they still are very equal in population. Anyway, Casper's misspelled, and it was never corrected. Casper is named in honor of Casper Collins, whose first name, Casper, is spelled C-A-S-P-A-R, not E-R, as the city is named. Casper with an A-R is the correct spelling. It was a mistake, never fixed. Casper, your name is misspelled. And I think you know that. This day, 1877, not Wyoming news, but certainly affected Wyoming. Inventor Thomas Edison unveiled his phonograph on this day in 1877. November 21st, 1887, the Wyoming Central Railway opened its line between Douglas and Glen Rock, thereby extending rail service to the state line. Douglas to Glen Rock, Wyoming Central Railway finally opened this day, 1887. 1895, the federal district court sitting in Cheyenne held that the Treaty of 1868 exempted Indians from the state's game laws. That decision would later be reversed. The United States Circuit Court of Cheyenne held that the provisions of the state statute were inconsistent with the Treaty of 1868. This would exonerate a Bannock Indian named Racehorse. And this whole incident, by the way, took place in Uintah County, then Uintah County. It would be today kind of the border of Sublette and Teton County. It goes back to reported Indian massacre of the day, which was not the case. Here's what happened, and this is well-known history in Teton and Sublette County, just south of me, by the way. I could drive down there in about 5 minutes. It was the Battle Mountain in the Hoback Canyon back in the day. Teton posse was after some Bannock Indian tribal members for their killing of 7 elk. And the killing of these 7 elk was done outside of the hunting season. And, of course, the Bannock said, that's white man rules. We hunt elk when we hunt elk, when we're hungry. We don't care about your hunting season. And it came to a head, and the posse finally surrounded a bunch of Bannock tribal members. And the result was one Bannock Indian was shot and killed, and it really was kind of a mistake. If I read the stories about this, I think there was just a few shots fired, and it was by mistake. You know, they had rounded up the Bannock Indians, including men, women, and children. And during the standoff, somebody moved and a gun went off, and oh boy, you got a Bannock member dead, who, by the way, the child of that Bannock Indian was then adopted and cared for by a county, I'm pretty sure. They adopted this Indian child and raised him. But the end result of the shooting, the accidental shooting and one death and the confrontation was the way it played in a New York City newspaper. And I want to say the newspaper was the New York Times, like a real paper, not like the New York Post. Like this was a legit paper that, you would assume would not get things wrong. But the way this incident played with one person shot was all citizens of Jackson Hole, Wyoming massacred on this day. And it couldn't, of course, the end, it couldn't be further from the truth, the actual story. But this all had to do with the 1895 ruling and the treaty about who was under whose jurisdiction when it came to the hunting season. Just a interesting story. This day in 1910, no, we're not going to do that one. I don't even know what that means. This day in 1913, Nathaniel Burt, famous author, was born in Moose, Wyoming, right up the road. Happy birthday, Nathaniel Burt. 1913, 1940, Cheyenne, Wyoming was the location of a grand wedding between Martha Gellhorn and this dude named Ernest Hemingway. They got married at the Union Depot Dining Room in Cheyenne on this day in 1940. This day in 1950, a DC-3 airplane crashed into Mount Moran, killing all 21 on board. The plane was flying in poor weather. We've talked about that incident before on this story about that crash. The crash site, there was very little recovered, no bodies. It was just horrendous. Everybody killed instantaneously. This day, 1950, that crash occurred. This day, 1957, in Wyoming, the Department of Defense announced that the F.E. Warren Air Force Base would be the site of the nation's first ICBM missiles. It would be the first ICBM, Intercontinental Ballistic Missile Base, the first one of the country. F.E. Warren Air Force Base, 1957. And on November 21st, 1975, Dick Cheney assumed the position of White House Chief of Staff under Gerald Ford. It all happened on this day in history, November 21. Let's go back to the news site, Cowboy State Daily, pick up some more stories of the day, starting with, no, that's not the one I wanted. I think I had an idea where I wanted to go with the next story, and now I've kind of forgotten what I wanted to do. We don't have a story on this. This is just, maybe it's a developing story, as they say. But a press release issued by the Jackson Police Department, Jackson, Wyoming, acknowledges what looks to be a brewing fight club, if you've ever seen the movie. I've never seen the movie, but I know of it. But the press release, Russ Russell wrote this press release on behalf of JPD, Jackson Police. They acknowledged on November 9th at approximately 11 p.m., nothing good happens after 10. You know that, kids. Police responded to a disturbance at the Teton County Community Center at the fairgrounds. Officers arrived and located 2 injured members. The disturbance was determined to be a fight between a large group of mostly juveniles and some young adults. Russell stated, "It's our understanding that all injured parties were treated and released by medical personnel. The subsequent investigation into the fight, how it happened, why it started, who was involved, has been ongoing for the past week. It's led already to 1 arrest of an adult for aggravated assault, several referrals to Teton County Juvenile Court for additional charges. Police are still seeking additional suspects and witnesses. Jackson Police Department is asking assistance from the public in this matter. Several videos of the incident, several videos of the fight have appeared on social media. Maybe you can watch those and ID someone, mom, dad. Maybe you can ID your teenager. Was he or she involved in this fight? Police department is looking for more information. Meanwhile, Jackson Police Chief Michelle Weber wants Jackson to remain a safe place for everyone. She recognizes that these incidents are disturbing, particularly if the incident and related videos have been viewed by younger audiences. Jackson Police Department would like to take the opportunity with their children when it comes to solving problems, and don't let your kids out after 10. Well, that's my advice. But, I've heard, and it's not part of this press release, that the fight over here in the Teton County Fairgrounds in Jackson, Wyoming, was not the only one. I heard there's also been gang fights, mass fights over the hill in Idaho, in Teton County, Idaho. So maybe it's Teton County versus Teton County cross-border conflict. I don't know what's fueling the fights, whether they're just all fun and games and we're going to have some Fight Club stuff, or whether there's some kind of serious feud or gang-related activity. I'm not sure. I'm not sure the police know, but they want to know more. If you know more, Jackson Police Department looking for information on a big fight last week, a couple of weeks ago, November 9th at the fairgrounds. Fight Club comes to Jackson. All right. Let's get to top of the hour news. Begin our next hour. We'll have guests next hour that include, I believe we got Renee. Yeah, Renee Jean should join us if she's feeling better. She's feeling a little under the weather on Tuesday and she had to bow out. But we're going to look for Renee in the next hour, and Ask Abby segment coming up at 1/2 the hour. It's all happening right here on the Cowboy State Daily Show with Jake. Let's get to the newsroom with Wendy Core now.
It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming for Thursday, November 21st. I'm Wendy Core, bringing you headlines from the Cowboy State Daily newsroom, brought to you by the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show with Jake. From 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday, Cowboy State Daily's Jake Nichols takes you deeper into the stories that matter and keeps up with the news, weather, and sports in your part of Wyoming. Just tune in to CowboyStateDaily.com and join the conversation. The Joint Revenue Committee advanced draft legislation at its meeting on Monday that, if passed into law, would cut property taxes by 25% for single-family residential home values of $2 million or less. Cowboy State Daily's Leah Wolfson reports that the bill is almost identical to the legislation Governor Mark Gordon already vetoed earlier this year.
The interesting thing about this is that Gordon obviously vetoed this bill, but the legislature does have the numbers to overturn his veto. It could have actually done so earlier this year, but the governor took so long to veto the bill that this would have required the calling of a special session to overturn the governor's veto.
The committee passed the bill on an 11-3 vote on Monday. If passed into law, it would go into effect for the upcoming tax year and expire in June of 2027. For the past 14 years, 11 240-foot-high, 450,000-pound wind turbines have loomed over the landscape of northeastern Casper, once the symbol of the county's first step into green energy. Now some say they're just an eyesore. Casper resident Terry Wingirter was one of the Natrona County commissioners who approved the initial project in 2009. He told Cowboy State Daily's Dale Killingbeck that he wishes now he would have voted differently on the wind farm, which was to be operated by Chevron.
It didn't turn out the way he thought it was going to turn out. It only operated for a few years, then stopped, and he just feels like it hasn't been the asset, anything like that he thought it was going to be. The Natrona County Attorney's Office has received a letter from Chevron stating that they are going to try and make them operational by the end of the year. Whether that happens or not is yet to be determined.
State Representative Forrest Chadwick from House District 62, which includes the wind farm, said he's not heard complaints from constituents on the issue, but he believes the company needs to do something other than allow the wind turbines to sit idle in the wind. 12 women, including 1 associate coach and 2 former and 9 current collegiate volleyball players, last week sued the Mountain West Conference, San Jose State University, and others over the inclusion of a transgender member on SJSU's team. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports that on Tuesday, the conference said the women manufactured their own emergency to force the court into acting just the tournament when they could have sued as early as late September.
The women want the court to basically say that Blair Fleming cannot compete in the Mountain West volleyball tournament in this conference. And they're saying, hurry up and do this for us since the tournament starts November 27th. And so the Mountain West Conference comes back and says, whoa, you guys have known about the forfeiture policy since September 27th at least. So if this was such an emergency as it presented now, then they would have come to you with it in September or October, not in November right before the tournament.
One of the women's main arguments is that the Mountain West Conference stealth or contrived its transgender participation policy on September 27th of this year, just as universities were starting to boycott games against San Jose. The Mountain West Conference says its policy is nothing new and was passed by athletic directors in August of 2022. With a years-long steady decline of Wyoming coal production setting up 2024 to come in less than 200 million tons for the first time in 32 years, the workforce mining that coal also continues to shrink. Third quarter of this year, employment at Wyoming coal mines is down almost 8% from the end of 2023, according to Cowboy State Daily's Greg Johnson.
Coal employment is down about 7.7% this year so far compared to the end of last year. But looking back, it's down 25% from 2017. The natural correlation is as production wanes, fewer people are needed to produce less coal, so those jobs are leaving. Now, that doesn't mean that those people aren't using the skills. Those skills do transfer to other industries, the trona mines, to the oil fields, but those coal jobs, they're some of the highest paying jobs in Wyoming.
But there's a trickle-down effect the coal mines have on other businesses that service them. Less production and fewer workers also means less business for local welders, electricians, well service companies, and others that contract with the mines and employ more of the local workforce. And now let's take a look at today's weather with Cowboys.
Wyoming is fortunate to be between 2 large storms, one just off the west coast that'll batter the Pacific Northwest and California with rain, snow, and wind, and a big storm blowing up over the Great Lakes region. But in between the 2 storms is high pressure, and that's where we are. So for today and tomorrow, it'll be warmer, sunny to partly sunny. We're still going to have wind, but the wind won't be as strong as the last couple of days. And other than a few snow showers in the far western mountains of the state, there really won't be much going on over the next 48 hours. Now, over the weekend, some changes. We'll start to see some of that weather off the west coast come inland. So as we get into Saturday night, and Sunday, there'll be some snow in the far west and the western valleys and mountains. And along the I-80 corridor, we may be seeing some developing snow late Saturday, Sunday into early Monday. Something we'll keep an eye on, and we'll have more on that for you tomorrow.
You can get Don's full forecast on the Cowboy State Daily website. I'll be back in just 15 seconds with more news.
Open enrollment is here. Discover a range of low-cost plans from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Wyoming. Shop now to find the best town in touch. We're right around the corner. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Wyoming. What's your plan?
Well, Wyoming's prospective new gold mine has just cleared state regulatory hurdles and is moving ahead with a feasibility study, one step closer to actually pulling gold out of the ground. Cowboy State Daily's Renee Jean reports that there really is gold in them thar hills. That is the CK Gold project that U.S. Gold is developing about 20 miles west of Cheyenne.
This company, U.S. Gold, their state regulatory hurdles, they've cleared all their permits, and now they're doing the final feasibility study that's going to determine if they can get financing for this project. If they get financing for this project, Wyoming will have its first and only gold mine. It's set to operate for 10 years.
It has financing in place, although it does now have a link on its site. Employees. Wyoming's only member of the U.S. House of Representatives voiced support Wednesday for a new House rule banning males from the women's bathrooms and locker rooms throughout the U.S. Capitol complex. Representative Nancy Mace of South Carolina introduced a resolution to that effect Monday, weeks after Delaware Democrat Sarah McBride was elected as the first openly transgender member of Congress. Representative Harriet Hageman voiced support for the new rule in a Wednesday email to Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland.
The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, basically enacted it Wednesday, saying we're going to do men in men's bathrooms and changing rooms, women in women's bathroom and changing rooms. But the statement notes that there's lots of unisex bathrooms throughout the facility.
McBride issued a Wednesday statement to X, formerly Twitter, calling the bathroom movement a distraction from real issues. Well, a dispute over state-owned land has been causing an uproar in the Sundance area. The state has refused to put fencing around a 4,714-acre parcel of scenic canyon lands bought by the state of Wyoming in 2020. This has led to cattle from neighboring land users drifting onto the parcel and frustrating ranchers. Cowboy State Daily's Leah Wolfson reports that Crook County Sheriff Jeff Hodge has refused to write tickets for trespassing and has been petitioning the Office of State Lands and Investments to change its stance.
The issue has resulted in cattle crossing over from Schlorit's land into the new Lisi's land, creating a very high-tension-filled dispute over cattle trespassing on the new leaser's land. State legislators like Representative Chip Nyman have also petitioned the state to give the land for leasing back to the previous renter, Schlorit. The issue has become quite contentious.
The biggest problem with the land predicament is deciding who should pay for fencing to separate the state and private parcels, a cost that Hodge has estimated would run as much as $380,000. And as Colorado prepares to reintroduce more wolves, increased worry over them being shot has prompted a conservation group to set up a $50,000 reward fund for wolf poaching tips. The reward has been in the works for months, but the timing of its announcement Thursday was prompted by a bullet wound recently found in a Colorado wolf carcass. That's what members of the Rocky Mountain Wolf Project told Outdoors reporter Mark Hines.
Now, the bullet was not what killed the wolf, and they never have been able to determine whether the wolf suffered that wound in Colorado or whether it had been shot previously when it came from Oregon. That did raise their worry or their concern when that bullet wound was found, that are people going to try to start to poach wolves in Colorado?
Some Colorado ranchers have expressed increasing frustration with wolves in that state. The ranch had become, quote, a grocery store for wolves. And that's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting the daily newsletter button on cowboystatedaily.com. And you can watch this newscast every day by clicking subscribe on our YouTube channel. And don't forget to drop in on the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show with Jake Nichols, Monday through Friday from 6 to 10 a.m. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Wendy Corr for Cowboy State Daily.
We're back. The morning show with Jake continues. We're back, and I'm small again. Oh, man. Yeah, it's just going to continue that way all morning. I can see that I will have to fix it every time. Let's see if this fixes it. I'm hoping to be joined by Renee here in just a little bit. We'll talk about stories of her. Meanwhile, I do have a couple of questions people have asked of Abby for Ask Abby coming up at 9:30, all part of the Cowboy State Daily Show, which includes some stories we got to get to. We got to hustle here. We've had so many guests this morning that I haven't been able to get to some of our stories. Into the Zoom room. That sounds like somebody at the door. Knock, knock. Yeah, it is Renee. Good job. Renee's in right on time. Let's take us to the Zoom room. There's Renee. There's me. I've been having trouble with my camera today, Renee, but I look okay. You look fantastic. What's happening in your world? I had all these stories I wanted to talk to you about Tuesday, but you were not up to the task. So what did I miss? You had the gold mining. Oh, yeah, today. And that's interesting. This is not uncharted territory. This is some old ghost town, old mining, the CK mine, which, they hit low grade gold. It just wasn't worth it. And then the miners got mad. They weren't getting paid and blew up the boiler. That was the end of the old mine. But the new mine, U.S. Gold said, low grade's okay when you mine the way we do in volume. Maybe there's some copper, but I guess the last of the state regulations have finally been cleared. Is it all full speed ahead for U.S. Gold?
Yeah, so they're working on their financial feasibility study. That'll be their last step. They need that in order to procure the financing to construct the mine and operate it. So that'll be pretty important. Everything's contingent on that one last thing that they got to do. But yeah, I think it's pretty cool. Wyoming hasn't had it's had lots of almosts, lots of wishful thinking. I think, South Pass City, there was a Carissa mine there that mined some gold, but it never really panned out the way people thought it would. And Centennial, kind of the same thing. Kerwin, all these places where a little bit of gold was found, but not enough to really make it economical to transport to market. But the thing that's changed here is just technology is so different today. They can mine a lower grade in a larger volume with the equipment that they have. They have new techniques where they can separate out the metal containing mineral and just ship that to a smelter. They don't have to try to recover it on site, which gets to be pretty expensive. So, yeah, it's just a kind of a cool thing.
Interesting you use the term gold has never panned out in Wyoming. That's exactly where that phrase comes from, I would think. Yeah, we just never, we've had some definitely sitting on a whole mess of coal. There's lots of coal mines you can find in Wyoming on a small scale. We've had some silver, had, a little bit of gold, but nothing really. Wyoming's not been the payload that other places have been as far as mining.
There are lots of legends about gold that's in Wyoming. And I think some people are still out there searching for it. The stories behind South Pass City, these cavalrymen found some gold and were bragging about it, but nobody ever found wherever it was that they just picked up these huge chunks of gold off the ground. Nobody ever found that.
Yeah. I'll tell you one guy who has struck gold, and that's the 2008 Summer Olympics game gold medalist Brian Clay. I love this story about him because particularly the way Brian Clay got to be a gold medalist in the decathlon in the 2008 Summer Olympic Games. Not because when he was a kid, he was just head and shoulders better than anyone, faster than anyone, stronger than anyone. He wasn't that good to begin with. His parents never thought you'd dreamed of being on the Olympics. Good luck with that, kid. But in fact, he wanted to quit the track team like 20 times, but his coach, who was kind of a father mentor figure, just stuck with him. And this is someone who truly has achieved the highest standard, the gold medal, through just work and focus and, not the most gifted athlete to start with, but it was just determination. What messages can come from this guy? And the reason we're talking about Brian Clay is I guess he spoke recently in Wyoming, or he often is an inspirational speaker. Great story, Renee.
Thanks. Well, yeah, he came to Wyoming for the 41st annual Governor's Business Forum. He was kind of the guest speaker, and his talk was kind of chasing greatness. The idea being that you could apply his playbook really to anybody's life or their goals, what they want to do in life. And I thought it was a great inspirational story. As he put it, he wasn't born with an Olympic medal around his neck. he wasn't the star athlete on the track he joined. He had to learn how to, develop his potential and reach that greatness within. I think that's true for a lot of people. Talent is maybe 1% of it. The rest of it is hard work, determination, always trying to be learning, having a vision, having concrete goals and a concrete plan to get there. And then, like you said, surrounding yourself with people that have similar values that are going to help you stay on the straight and narrow. I love the little story where he was in Russia for one of the games, and the driver's like, "Hey, let me hook you up with some women," and he's like flipping through his phone, and like that's a temptation most of us don't face. But when you start to get in that elite circle like that, the temptations really ramp up. That could have totally derailed him, but he was smart and kind of drew in people around him that he knew would help him stick with his goals.
Yeah, and Brian Clay was not always made the right decisions when he was younger, when he was a kid. Like a lot of us, another message that transfers, had divorce, and he blamed himself for, why doesn't dad like me? Figure he kind of went off the rails a little bit in school, and mom put the clamp down on some advice to get him involved in sports, to kind of buckle him down. She said, you got a couple of choices. And the choices did not include football or any sport where he could take credit or point blame at his teammates. She said, you're going to get involved in just a one-on-one, it's all you kind of sport, and it's swimming or track. And he didn't like the way he'd look in a bathing suit, so he went track. I mean, probably... That was a good call, though. Way to go, Mom, to just focus him early into something, sports.
Yeah. And sports can be a good outlet for a lot of young people, I think. It teaches you a lot of things about life, teamwork and getting along with others. And I love sports growing up.
Your story about Jody Shumway, the Shumway family, is super cool. And it came when we had a few stories all similar about creameries, dairies, micro creameries and dairies, all alive today because of the Food Freedom Act, basically being able to sell direct to consumer. That's a game changer. I love the story about this little Star Valley place. What a cool dairy farm this is.
Yeah, once upon a time, Star Valley was known as Little Switzerland. It was settled by immigrants from Switzerland. They brought with them the art of making Swiss cheese. And so there were hundreds of dairies in Star Valley. And growing up, this was just what you did. You had a dairy, you milked cows. That's what Jody Shumway grew up with. And his brother inherited the farm, I guess, and eventually decided he just couldn't do it anymore. But Jody is a little more stubborn on the dream. He worked side jobs to keep going. But the thing that really helped him keep going was the Food Freedom Act, when they allowed raw milk sales direct from the farm. He was able to leverage that into a premium product, as well as create some new premium products from the milk, like the skyr and the ice cream. Those two products, by the way, are pasteurized. Their production requires that, but those can be sold across state lines. So now, from almost dying to he's looking at expanding across Idaho and selling some of his products there. Is becoming kind of a regional product that's very...
Yeah, as pointed out in this story, that, the business model of kind of everything today is, if you don't do it on it's not going to pencil for you. You can't be small in anything. You got to, if you're, whether you're a grocery store or in the cattle ranch business, I mean, you got to be big to make money. So it's great that this act allows for smaller farms and dairies to do their thing. I love that. And how inherent in the culture of Star Valley is dairy and and making cheese. The high school football team that's now Star Valley Braves was once Star Valley Cheesemakers. I kid you not, until they changed that name in the 40s. So,
Oh, that's interesting.
Go Cheesemakers. I mean, it's pretty important to the whole culture there down in Star Valley. Great stories.
History.
Renee, you just keep on delivering with stories of the month, stories of the year. If that's what you're shooting for, as 24 looks to close out soon, you're the front runner and story for the year, and pick one.
Thanks for that, Jake. I appreciate it.
Love reading your stuff. Thanks for coming on.
All right. See you later.
Yeah, you bet. Renee Jean with some fantastic stories. You got to get clued in to what she's writing about. Our business reporter, our roving reporter, our scientist. Renee covers it all, and her stories about this Food Freedom Act, how it saved a Star Valley dairy farm, is really cool. I love the gold medalist story and actual gold being mined. U.S. Gold says there is gold in them Thar Hills in the Kurt Gowdy State Park, and they're ready to get digging and start gold mining in Wyoming again. We're 6 minutes away from Ask Abby segment, and we'll do it right after this weather forecast from Don Day.
Wyoming is fortunate to be between two large storms, one just off the west coast that'll batter the Pacific Northwest and California with rain, snow, and wind, and a big storm blowing up over the Great Lakes region. But in between the two storms is high pressure, and that's where we are. So for today and tomorrow, it'll be warmer, sunny to partly sunny. We're still going to have wind, but the wind won't be as strong as the last couple of days. And other than a few snow showers, won't be much going on over the next 48 hours. Now, over the weekend, some changes. We'll start to see off the west coast come inland. So as we get into Saturday night and Sunday, there'll be some snow in the far west and the western valleys and mountains, and along the Saturday, Sunday into early Monday. Something we'll keep an eye on, and we'll have more on that for you tomorrow.
Yeah, getting back to it, our next story concerns this Casper wind farm that was one of the earliest wind farms in all of Wyoming back in the day when, the green movement was just getting going. Solar and wind and sustainable energy was all the rage. And the Natrona County commissioners were asked to approve or not approve this wind farm back. This is 14 years ago, 2009. And one member of the then Natrona County Board of County Commissioners, Terry Wingarder, said he wishes now he had voted differently on this wind farm. He voted to approve it. He said there were people on both sides. Some liked the idea, some didn't. But it did get approved, this wind farm by Casper Wind Farm is the company. It's only 11 turbines. It's not like a huge wind farm, but it got started. It got approved in 2009. It operated for a few years, and then something happened. And for the last 3 years, people have wondered, why aren't those wind turbines spinning anymore? What's going on? Here's what it looks like as we take a peek into the photo of this story. And the story, by the way, is from Dale Killingback. Here's what folks are a plain old eyesore. You've got 11 wind turbines that aren't spinning anymore. And what's going on? The company says, I love this part. Wingarder, by the way, says, I wish now we never approved this thing, knowing that it was going to lie dormant for at least 3 years. He said they haven't been used for I don't know how long. I'm guessing 3 years. Now it's an eyesore, if you ask me. This is Casper resident Terry Wingarder, who was once part of the county commission board that approved this. Meanwhile, a spokesperson for the Casper Wind Farm said they realize they are in partial non-operation. And Greg and I joked earlier, there's a lot of A lot of rednecks in Wyoming living in trailer parks that have a Ford Fairlane that's in partial non-operation up on blocks in the backyard. Here's more photos of these wind turbines that just aren't moving. Dale says that maybe they say the company thinks they can get things going by the end of the year. They blame the problem on some infrastructure. I think the turbines are able to function. The problem is getting that energy down the line, and there's some kind of problem there. But what was once the symbol of the step into green energy is now just sitting there as a hanging out in the breeze kind of wind turbine. That isn't that story from Dale Killingbeck. It's in, it was popped out yesterday in the Cowboy State Daily edition. We're going to talk to Ask Abby here in a second. I'm going to cue up some music for what kind of music would be proper for Ask Abby. I'm going to have to figure that out. We'll be right with her in a moment after this quick break. All right, let's get back to it. That's Abby, and it's time for Ask Abby every Thursday. Abby, what's happening?
What's up, Jake?
We didn't beat them sheep. Oh, man.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, that was
good.
rough.
That was rough. No good. It's not going to get any easier this weekend either, but yeah. And
what did Petrino say?
Jared was, he didn't join us yesterday. He's going to be on tomorrow.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And we'll get his, he's probably got the black armband on. He's in mourning. It was just tough to take when we can't beat CSU any year. Yeah. We got some trivia questions for you today concerning, Now, were you born in Wyoming?
Yes.
You're Wyoming through and through.
Yes.
I know it. Because you've got that confident air about you that just reeks Wyoming. So we're going to give you some Wyoming trivia. This could be embarrassing because even people.
Get my phone.
Oh, no. You're not getting on the Googler. We're going to know if you're cheating. First off, I thought I would mention that if you're in the Jackson neck of the woods coming up here soon, we got Ian Munsick, Wyoming's favorite cowboy, in concert. He'll be at the $1 Million Cowboy Bar. What is your favorite Ian Munsick song?
Probably.
Yeah. Mountain Time's good. I dig this one. I don't know if you can tell me. I always wonder if our Zoom guests can hear when I play music here, but I don't know. You tell me.
She's a cowboy killer.
Oh, yeah.
She's a cowboy killer.
It sounds weird.
Yeah, it sounds weird. Cowboy Killer, though.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I love Cowboy Killer.
That's got another Wyoming guy on it.
Yes. Sings
from
with
Buffalo.
Oh, yeah? I don't know hardly nothing about Ryan Charles. I didn't know he's from Buffalo. What else do you know about?
I went to college with his older brother, and he's a fun guy.
Huh.
I think he lives in LA maybe now. I'm not really sure, but he's making waves in his world, and I think he's got his own little niche, his own little sound, which is pretty cool. And I like his songs. They're fun. His music videos are hilarious. Like he's a fun one. You got to keep your eye on him.
Okay. Yeah. You know everybody, and you're definitely plugged into the Wyoming music scene. So that's cool.
Yeah.
We'll talk a little bit more about that. But this, I wanted to give you the heads up on the Ian Munsick at the $1 Million Cowboy Bar, because you need to start now, if you haven't already, saving your money for tickets. They're $400 a throw. If you want to see Ian, I saw him for free a couple of years ago at the county fair here. But yeah, he's
Wow. When is that? Is that on over New Year's?
He's in a high dollar stratosphere over here. Let me see. What is the date? No, tickets go on sale. So if it isn't sold out already, the show is December 15th, Sunday.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a big deal. So the last time I saw him a couple years ago at the county fair, and I'm almost sure, but it could have been somebody else. But I'm because my memory, everything runs together now. I'm almost positive it was Ian Munsick that did a cover of Exile's "Kiss You All Over," and this song predates you. I'll bet if you heard him do it, you would know what it was.
Well, yeah, I think I do know that song, and I wouldn't put it past him. I mean, he was singing when he came to Casper a couple months ago. He was singing Britney Spears on stage. So he's a man of many talents.
And I thought it was perfect. The crowd loved it. Now, the crowd's obviously there for, basically country music. They're there for Ian Munsick music. But I swear he did this, and this is "Kiss You All Over" if you hear it. When you let it, you don't have to. You've heard this.
I can't hear it, but yeah, what's the name?
It's a big 70s song.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah, so let's make plans December 15th. Ian Munsick. Thanks for
You're paying.
Yeah.
Let's sneak in. Like old times,
We could sneak in.
We'll just say we're part of the band.
I know.
I play the cymbals, remember? I'm on the cymbals.
You're the cymbal player, and I'm tambourine, or wait a minute, Josie and the Pussycat. No. Well, that ain't going to work. Actually, I know ways to sneak in, because I'm usually there on Sunday nights as the DJ. This Sunday night, I won't be, obviously. It'll be Ian Munsick, but yeah. I'll pretend I'm just there to work. Like, oh, I didn't know Ian was here, and we'll just sneak in. We'll see how that goes. What else on the Wyoming music scene should we be listening to?
Oh, well, I do have some fun news that I got. You remember our good friend, JB Zilke?
Yeah.
So he is he's throwing, what do we call it? He's throwing a music fest in Gillette, May 29th, 30th. And so that will be super cool. I don't think he's announced who's coming yet. So I better not share that information. But yeah, the Lost Cowboy is throwing a music fest, Camplex. It'll be at the Camplex. And it'll be pretty, you might want to start saving your pennies for that as well, because one of the guests I know you're a fan of, so you'll like that.
Well, I know we're talking about JB Zilke, who there's been a couple of stories written about him in the Cowboy State Daily. He's the Wyoming cowboy, famous for just at one point in his life saying, I wonder what it would be like to go cowboy over here, over there. And he's cowboyed on every continent except the one that doesn't have anything going on. Antarctica. Yeah, you can't rope anything but an iceberg down there. But yeah, he's been around. His story is incredible, JB Zilke. And I know, he loves music, and I know he's kind of buddy with Colton Wall. So don't tell me he's one of them.
Coulter Wall,
sorry.
Yeah. Yes.
I would love it if he was involved, but yeah.
Stay tuned. I think tomorrow is the announcement, so.
Okay.
Keep your eyes peeled.
All right. I'm going to keep the date open, May 29, 30, around there. Okay.
I think so.
Excellent. Okay, Wyoming trivia. You're supposedly this Wyoming cowgirl. So you ready? That's me saying that. All right, we'll start with easy ones, okay?
Okay.
The state mammal. Oh, come on.
The
It's on the
state
flag.
mammal?
It's on the flag.
Oh, the buffalo?
Yeah. Okay.
Oh gosh, yeah, okay. I was overthinking that.
Yeah. I said it. We start easy. That was February 23rd, 1985. The bison was officially named the Wyoming state mammal.
So the bison's going to be 40 this year.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
Yes.
Boy, you do math fast. I'm impressed.
Well, I'm going to be 40 this year, so I knew that.
All right. Everybody's seen this out there hiking the state flower.
Oh, yes. Indian paintbrush.
All right. Bingo. Wait, I need where's my ding?
Are you keeping score?
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
Right now, I'm going to play the thing if you're wrong. And then don't I have okay, if you're right, and you can, so you're not going to know. And if you're wrong, all right. Okay, state.
The meadowlark.
Correct. Wow. You are Wyoming.
I feel like I'm more 2.5 because I don't think I get credit for the first question. I'm zoning.
Give that to you. I'm the boss of this. We're going to give it to you. You're 3 for 3. Okay. We know for somebody like you who knows their way around fly fishing just a little bit, what's the state fish? What are you looking for?
Oh, I think the actual state fish is it's something that I don't like to fish for.
It's not the whitefish. It's not. I mean, are you Googling? I'm not looking at you right now. The state fish.
Is it a cutthroat?
Yes.
Okay. Which one? Bonneville?
It just says cutthroat trout. Salmo clarkii is the Latin. That was established in 1987, by the way. Yes, the cutthroat trout. Yeah, super easy. Come on. Here, now we're going to get tough, and we may need Andrew Rossi to chime in on this one. If you want to call a friend, Andrew Rossi. State dinosaur.
Stop it. Do we really have
I can already tell now this is going to be a wrong. What do you got? Triceratops.
Oh.
That one with the,
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Don't overthink this. Knee-jerk reaction, your gut reaction. State sport.
Basketball.
Oh, my goodness.
Going downhill. We really took a bad turn, didn't we?
How are you going to bounce a basketball on this in the sagebrush?
Hockey? I don't know.
What does Wyoming do better than just about everybody except for Texas, maybe?
Cowboy.
Rodeo, state sport adopted in 2003.
That's funny. I'm learning. You're learning me up today.
No, hey, you're the native. I'm in awe. Much respect. You're just cruising through it. I guess I got one more that we skipped. I missed it. The state tree. I didn't even know we had a
Russian olive. I don't know.
No, the cottonwood. You see the evidence of the cottonwood that for those 2 weeks a year when it feels like it's snowing.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right.
Well, I learned some things.
Yeah, for sure. Do you know? Did you see in the news? Have you ever seen turbines outside of Casper that are not spinning anymore?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's everybody around kind of knows them.
I would say so. Yeah.
All right.
What's the story? I'm not in the loop.
Yeah, the company that put them up, it's one of the first wind turbine projects in Wyoming, dates back to 2009. But for 3 years, they have been in partial non-operation. Do you have anything in your home that's in partial non-operation? I got a computer here. All of us. But they haven't been spinning. They haven't been working. And the companies, making excuses. But for the last 3 years, so the story in today's Cowboy State Daily is at least one commissioner that approved it back in the day is like, I wish I never did. Knowing that, they're just sitting there now doing nothing, looking bad.
Yeah.
All right.
Dang it.
What else? Anything in the news got you interested?
Oh, well, I liked all the raw milk stories in the creamery, but you just talked about that with Renee, but that was kind of fun learning about all that stuff. I mean, I kind of, know the ins and outs, but it was kind of neat how we had so many stories about it all at once. I know. It was fun.
Yeah, it is cool. And the Food Freedom Act allowing for that. And you would be like the people we talk to in the stories are on the producer end, but you would be on the consumer end as a expert, dietitian. Is that something, the products they make, like, would you buy this stuff? Would you be interested in it?
I'm not a big dairy consumer in general. So, I don't know. Probably not, but I think it definitely has benefits. And I think it, if it's going to be used, I don't think it's going to have a negative impact. But yeah, I'm not a big dairy drinker. It's limited in my diet. So,
all right, let's go.
I don't have too strong of feelings.
Let's go to one more aspect in your skill set. We've talked about in the past, Abby the bartender, Abby the musician appreciator, Abby the state resident, native born. Let's go to Abby the dietitian. Is that what you would call it? Nutritionist?
Registered dietitian.
Okay.
Yeah.
You could, there's nowhere you could not start with me. I'm terrible. Like my favorite food group is jelly beans. I'm awful. I don't know how I'm still alive. But here's one thing I do that I would swear by. I try to do this anyway. And you tell me if this is good or not. Is I try to start the day before I drink like a gallon of coffee. I drink as much cold water as I can, like glug, 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 glug water. Supposedly that like gets you going, gets you started for the day, gets you, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's good. It is good. I think what you should do is move your body, shake a little bit, get the lymphatic system going, just move your body. Everyone teases me because I'll just like shake it out, like, Taylor Swift said, but that's really good to get your lymphatic system going. That's important. Cold water is good. I think you're supposed to, they say you should probably eat some kind of protein before you drink coffee, but I like to just start chugging coffee and then just vibrate the rest of the day, and have anxiety and panic attacks.
We're shaking it out with Abby. We're just, we're elevating to I feel like I'm elevating to a higher level. Okay. I'll shake it out
and
every
you
morning.
Gotta go outside and get grounded. You know about that, right? You got to go outside and get your feet in the earth.
Yeah. I totally believe in that. Like barefoot, no foot, nothing between you and the ground, being grounded. I've heard people that actually in companies that actually, market a, like a stake in the ground and then it'll come all the way in with a wire to your bed so you can sleep grounded. It's so weird. But I do believe that. You got to be grounded.
Yeah. I'm actually down in Arizona staying with my aunt and uncle, and they have, a little piece of fake grass in their backyard. I was outside walking on it. And I came in the house and they said, "Are you getting grounded out there on our fake grass?" And I was like, "I don't know. I might have to do some research. I don't think I am." So.
Artificial.
I don't think it does.
The xeriscaping of Arizona is attractive to me as a lazy landowner. You never have to push the lawnmower down there.
You get your leaf blower out and just all over.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing outside. Yeah.
All right, cool. Abby, we learned so much more about you. You've learned so much more about Wyoming. And
State dinosaur.
Well, yeah, we didn't mean for this to be a learning experience every Thursday at 9:30. We just wanted it to be fun. And so far it has been. Go Pokes. We got a heavy lift, Boise State. I don't know.
Yeah, it's what Disney movies are made of. I'm
Yeah.
always shooting for a Disney movie. Like, what if we won? Someone could write a story, right?
Yeah. Bigger the challenge, bigger the upset, bigger the story. All right. I'm all for that. And thanks, by the way, for getting Jack on last week. That was so cool. And
that was fun.
That was a great talk. People were talking about it and emailing me days after they really liked it. People who knew Jack or thought it was cool that we had him. And
yeah.
Oh,
good. I'll come up with some more surprise guests.
Yeah. All right. Awesome.
Somewhat of a surprise. I'll give you a heads up.
Yeah. Well, that's all right. Ask Gabby every Thursday, 9:30. And you did really good today. You missed only like one.
Yeah. I'll get a text from Jimmy that'll be like, Abby.
Yeah. Thanks, Abby.
All right. Have a good day, Jake.
You too. Appreciate it. Abby and I are going to try to get to that Ian Munsick concert, $1 Million Cowboy Bar. That's next month, but I'm going to have to save my pennies. That's actually the VIP, upfront seating, I guess, meet and greet and all that for the $400. But yeah, tickets for Ian Munsick, save your money, December 15th at the $1 Million Cowboy Bar. We'll be right back with more news of the day in the Cowboy State Daily Show. Oh, I went small again. Dang it. All right, I'm going to fix that right now. Let's play Don Day's weather forecast.
It's a Thursday, the 21st day of November, 2024. Your Day Weather Podcast brought to you by Converse County Tourism. Douglas and Glen Rock, Wyoming are bustling with action this holiday season. Plan your excursion, including fun activities, beautiful downtowns, and historic treasures. Learn more at conversecountytourism.com. Well, we're going to be, for a lot of folks watching this video, going to be in a good couple of days here, as high pressure is in between these two large storm systems. I say not for all, because for those of you in the Pacific Northwest, along the West Coast, it's going to be pretty stormy, as well as some of the interior, as we see this very intense Pacific storm spin off the coast. But fair and warmer weather will be found on the plains, along the Continental Divide, especially east of the Divide today and Friday, and a good portion of Saturday, really pretty good, while the stormy weather continues further west, as that storm is kind of stuck off the coast of Washington and British Columbia at the moment. However, as we mentioned yesterday, there's going to be a segment of strong and moist jet stream winds coming over late in the weekend and into Monday that will produce a little bit of weather for some of you, especially in some of the mountain areas. And it will also start to draw in some colder air from Canada. Then we start to see what's left of the big Pacific storm interior west towards the middle of next week. And I think this might end up being a little bit of a headache for holiday travel. And that's something we're going to have to keep a really close eye on. I know a lot of you are going to be interested. We'll do our best to keep an eye on it, as that what's left of that Pacific storm, even though it'll be a mere shadow of what it's been, just a mere shadow of that storm is going to be enough to make some weather. Then we're looking at a possible big cold shot. And I mean, let's say winter cold that we haven't really had yet. That could be coming right after Thanksgiving, as we're in a negative EPO phase. We'll talk about that here in a minute. Beautiful shot there from Dave Bell of the sunrise on the Tetons earlier this week. Now, a lot of these mountains starting to see the snow get a little bit deeper. A lot of these mountains will be shrouded in clouds in the coming days, where we're not going to see them for a little bit. Good view in while you can. The satellite imagery this morning showing the two major features. That Great Lakes storm really starting to get itself better organized. It's just going to be raw and nasty with rain and strong winds and snow in the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, then moving into the northeastern United States, where they really need the precipitation. Here's this broad area of high pressure that a lot of us will be under. There you can see the swirl of the clouds off the Pacific coast. And we'll now take a look over there and see that low has reached its maximum strength. It's not nearly as intense, but it's still well put together. Still very low pressure, still going to be causing a lot of wind, and it's going to be causing more wind and rain on the coast, snow in the mountains of British Columbia, Washington, Oregon, into central northern California. Here's that Pacific pipeline on in that will just continue. These speckled clouds indicate cold, moist air sitting over the Pacific wanting to come into North America. When you get an air mass like this comes in, it's just a precipitation factory, especially for the mountains, as it gets pulled into the coast. Satellite image this morning shows that very well. As we now go to radar, you can see the counterclockwise spin of the Great Lakes low. You can see that deep Pacific moisture producing a lot of moisture in Northern California, then stretching to the Pacific Northwest with the trajectory of the moist air going up this way. As we look at the 500 millibar chart on a time frame. So that's sort of the second wave looks like this. What's left of the storm, which was here, gets broken off and finally comes through the Rockies and comes over the divide. This is the replacement coming in from the north to kind of come in and be right behind this low. Now, this system isn't going to be a terribly well put together system, but I showed you that very large area of cold, moist air in the Pacific. That's what gets brought in by this low. So it's likely going to produce some weather. What do I mean by weather? I mean colder temperatures, icy, snowy roads and highways. While it won't be a, quote, big system, it will be enough, I think, to cause some headaches for folks wanting to get out, travel in the Wednesday, Thursday timeframe. We'll see. We've got several days to see it could change, but just want to give you a heads up there. This takes us through the middle of Thanksgiving week. We still have this feature. Generally speaking, a broad area of high pressure in the eastern Pacific. Remember, for those of you who have watched the podcast for a while, when we're in a ridge here, we're in a fridge here. Ridge here, fridge here, because the door opens to colder Canadian air. The trick with these high pressure ridges is sometimes they get pinched off, then the push of the cold air isn't as far south. But if they don't get pushed off, what happens is the jet stream does this. It rides up, then it rides far south. And when you have a big cross latitude change in air masses, you can imagine what happens. So all of a sudden you're bringing air from very high latitudes to lower latitudes, which potentially going to be a lot colder by early December. And that's the Monday after. That's 30 degrees or more Fahrenheit below the seasonal normals in areas. And it gets both sides of the continental divide. So we'll need to keep an eye on that. I think the confidence level is pretty high that some sort of bigger cold snap will develop after Thanksgiving. It's just going to matter the intensity. Why are we confident about that? Well, we're going to be going into a negative phase, and we are right now, of the Eastern Pacific Oscillation. This is what we call a teleconnection. During the cold season, we like to show these large-scale oscillations that happen around the globe, and especially over the oceans, because this is when they are really the most important. The Eastern Pacific Oscillation, simply put, is an understanding of where the high pressure systems are and the low pressure systems are in the Pacific and how that relates to what the weather may do in North America. When it goes into a negative phase, the western and central parts of the United States and a lot of the east can get a lot colder and stormy. So anything below this zero line is the negative phase of the Eastern Pacific Oscillation. A negative phase is a cold, stormy signal for the U.S., especially the central and western U.S. Pacific Ridge, on how our weather will go in the cold season. So when it's there, you can see what the end result is with surface conditions. The cold wants to be on this side of the Western Hemisphere, while the warmer air relative to average is going to be underneath that ridge up in Alaska. So it's counterintuitive, right? When Alaska is warm, we get really cold. When Alaska gets really cold, we get warmer. That's how it works in terms of the placement of these systems. So the configuration of an Eastern Pacific Ridge leads to a trough over the U.S. and Canada, and this is the negative phase. The positive phase is when there's a low in the Gulf of Alaska and we get into a ridge here. That's when we have our our bigger winter thaws and quieter stretches of weather in the winter. So when we see this configuration, that's a signal, that's a real sign that we're about ready to enter the cold phase. But if this ridge can't go up that far north, or it gets cut off and then it becomes a more westerly flow, then we don't get as cold. So what we're going to be watching is whether or not that ridge can maintain itself. If it does, the door is left wide open for air to come in from these very high latitudes, as I showed you, and to come south into the region. So, lots to talk about, lots to think about. We'll have more for you tomorrow.
Yeah, I got small again, but that's okay. We're ducking out of here. Ridge equals fridge. That's what we learned in the weather forecast. And watch out for that bomb cyclone. It's coming. Today, we covered a lot of ground. It's back. Property tax relief bill that Governor Gordon vetoed last session will be reintroduced by the Wyoming legislation this session. The state claims cattle are trespassing on its land. They want the local sheriff to write tickets. He said he'll not issue citations to the rancher. One of the oldest wind farms in Wyoming is now in partial non-operation, meaning it hasn't been spinning in 3 years. The Mountain West Conference answer to lawsuits and letters from legislators is to claim the urgency and emergency is being manufactured in order to get a transgender player out of the upcoming tournament. The case of the reckless duck hunter is too big for one judge to decide, says one judge. It should go to jury. And who's shooting Colorado wolves? All these stories and more we covered, including special guest appearance from long-standing U.S. Senator from the great state of Wyoming, Senator John Barrasso, now the number 2 partyman as the majority whip. And thank you so much, Senator Barrasso, for sharing part of your morning with us. What a day we had, huh? We'll do it again tomorrow, 6 o'clock. It's the Cowboy State Daily Show. Y'all have a good Thursday. Good morning. This is the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show with Jake. The new way Wyoming wakes up.
The views and opinions expressed on the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show are solely those of its host and do not necessarily represent those of Cowboy State Daily's